I discovered my family only valued my money, not me. I cut them off, reclaimed my life, and found freedom in choosing myself over their manipulation. My name is Emma, and until a few nights ago, I believed that my family loved me. It began with a simple notification. My aunt had given me a video. I was in the midst of preparing dinner when my phone rang. I wiped my hands on a towel, grabbed my phone, and unintentionally tapped the message. At first, I assumed she sent me something random, a family movie, or an old film she found amusing. But then I heard my mom's voice. Emma should be grateful. She'd be nothing without us. My stomach sank. The video looked unsteady, as if someone had laid their phone down without realizing it was recording, but the voices were perfectly audible. A pathetic failure? That's what Emma is, my father said with a laugh. But at least she's good for something, paying our bills. Laughter? I held my phone more tightly. If Emma ever stopped sending money, my aunt, who had just sent this, said with a smirk, we'd just guilt her into it. She's too soft to say no. My entire body became numb. Emma. This is my name. They weren't discussing a hypothetical person. They were not fooling around. They were talking about me. I had been assisting them for years, paying their rent, covering their debts, and spending my own funds to ensure they never struggled in the same manner I did. And is this what they truly thought of me? I was still stuck, my thumb hanging over the screen, when the video abruptly disappeared. This message has been unsent. I gazed at the notification. My aunt realized her error. She must have panicked and deleted the video, assuming I hadn't noticed. I should have challenged her. Should have called her out. I should have told them I knew everything. But instead, I put down my phone and pretended I hadn't seen it. And that's when I determined I wouldn't react. Not yet. I had a plan. I sat for what seemed like hours, staring at my phone. The words echoed in my thoughts. Emma should be grateful. A pathetic failure. She's too soft to say no. I wanted to believe there was a misunderstanding. Perhaps they were joking. Perhaps I was missing some context. But deep inside I knew better. I knew the truth. They intended every word. And the worst part. They were not wrong about one thing, I was too soft to say no. How many times had they guilted me into assisting them? How many times have I put my own life on hold to ensure they got what they required? My father's temporary financial difficulties developed into me paying rent for years. My brother's tuition, he didn't even complete college. My mother's incessant emergencies, always neatly timed when I had just been paid. And I had done everything without hesitation. Because that's what families are meant to do, right? I had spent years convincing myself that I was doing the correct thing. They appreciated me. They said they loved me. But that one video shattered every fantasy I had left. And now they believed they had gotten away with it. My aunt had unsent the message, perhaps breathing a sigh of relief that I hadn't noticed it. Perhaps she even reassured everyone. Don't worry, Emma didn't watch it. They assumed I was still in the dark. That was my advantage. I could have texted her right there. Could have confronted her. I told her I had seen everything. But what would that accomplish? They'd simply deny it. Make excuses. Twist the circumstances so that I feel guilty. I'd let them assume I was still their dutiful little financial account, for the time being. The next payment was due in a few days. And this time, things would be different. The next morning, I awoke to my normal routine, but everything felt different. The sun still shone through my drapes. My coffee brewed just as it usually did. But there was this awareness in the back of my mind, as if I was observing my life from a new perspective. My phone vibrated. A message from my mother. Mom. Morning, sweetie, just checking in. I hope you're doing well. I stared at the message. It was usual, too normal. She never texted me simply to check in. There was always a cause, and a request was hidden somewhere. And just a few minutes later. Mom. Oh, by the way, the rent is due soon. Can you send it by Friday? There it was. The same cycle. The same motif. But this time, I was not going to play along. I typed a response with my fingertips hovering over the keyboard. My typical response would be something like of course, or no issue. Maybe I'd even apologize for taking so long, just so they didn't feel inconvenienced. Not this time. I deleted everything and simply responded, I can't this month. Before sending the message, I glanced at it for a few seconds. I set down my phone and waited. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Buzz. Mom. What do you mean, you can't? I could see the displeasure on the television. I'd never said no before. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I took a sip of my coffee, leaving her to stew in her bewilderment. A couple more messages arrived. Mom. Emma, this is serious? We are counting on you. You know we don't have any other options right now. Another buzz. This time it's from my aunt. Aunt. Hello, honey. Your mother is freaking out. Is everything okay? I nearly laughed. Is everything okay? Sure. Everything was excellent. I had spent years paying for their life, and when I hinted at stopping, they panicked. They never asked me if I was all right, if I needed assistance. It never was about me. It had never been. I took a deep breath and responded. Me. I've had some unexpected bills this month. I cannot send anything. Sorry. That was it. There's no explanation, no apologies. And then I waited. What happened next revealed all I needed to know. The silence was terrible. For the first time in years, I had declined. They didn't know how to manage it. I stared at my phone, watching the 3 small dots appear and disappear. Over and over. My mom was typing. Stopping. Typing again. I envisioned her sitting there, fuming, trying to figure out the best way to persuade me to change my decision. Finally, her response got through. Mom. Emma, what do you mean by unexpected expenses? Is there anything more essential than your family? There it was. Guilt trip. They had always employed the same technique. I didn't respond. I simply let the message sit there. Less than 1 minute later. Mom. You know your brother doesn't have a way to pay his rent. If he's kicked out, that's on you. Ah. The brother card. Classic. Then another message. Mom. Emma, we raised you. We cared for you when you had nothing. Is this how you're repaying us? I gritted my jaw and tightened my fingers around my phone. When I had nothing? They never cared for me. I put myself through school. I worked 3 jobs to get out of that house. And as soon as I got money, they hung on to me like leeches, sucking me dry. They grabbed everything, so I had nothing. My phone vibrated again. Aunt. Emma, dear, do not do this. We are family. Your mother is merely upset. You know how she gets. Simply send the rent, and everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. Who is it fine for? I put down my phone, my heart hammering. I needed a second to breathe and ponder. I strolled to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and took a slow sip while looking at the clock on the wall. I could feel something shifting within me. For years, I had been afraid of this moment. I was afraid that if I stopped paying, they would detest me. They would cut me off. They would turn their back on me. But now I know the truth. They've never loved me. They adored what I could offer them. And the moment that ceased, they would reveal who they were. Buzz. I strolled back to my phone and picked it up with firm hands. This time, the communication came from my father. Dad. Emma, I'm not sure what has gotten into you, but this is unacceptable. You are being selfish. This family needs you, and you're behaving like an entitled brat. Grow up and do the right thing. There it was. The final mask slips. No more faking kindness. No more pretending to care, just demands. I stared at the words, my heart racing in my ears. Then another notification came up. A voice message. From my aunt. My hands trembled as I paused, my thumb lingering above the play button. Something told me this would change everything. I hesitated for a long time, staring at the small play button on the screen. A voice message. From Aunt D. My heart beat against my ribcage. She was not the type to send voice messages. If she had something to say, she usually sugarcoated it in text, passive-aggressive with just enough phony sweetness to make me feel bad. But this was different. Slowly, I pressed play. Her voice came through, harsh and impatient. Aunt. Listen, Emma. I'm not sure what game you're playing, but this isn't humorous. Your mother is losing her sanity. Your father is upset. And honestly, I do not blame them. You have always been a little ungrateful. But this is quite selfish. I felt my gut clench, but I forced myself to continue listening. Aunt. You have a wonderful job, right? You earn more than any of us. You don't even need the money. Meanwhile, your family is struggling. So what? Did you just wake up one day and realize you don't care? A bitter laugh. You owe them, Emma. After all they've done for you. Following all the sacrifices they made. They gave you life. Now you're going to walk away? Pretend they do not exist. What kind of a daughter would do that? She breathed forcefully, and for a moment I believed she was finished. But then, Aunt. You know what? Her tone altered, becoming colder now. If you truly want to be that kind of person, that's fine. But do not expect them to forgive you. Don't expect to come crawling back once you discover how much you rely on them. Because when you pass this line, there's no going back. The message terminated. Silence. I let the words sink, my thumb hovering over the replay button. My ears rang, and my hands were numb. I should have been afraid. I should have panicked. I should have been hurrying to make things right, to correct this, to apologize. But instead, I felt relaxed. More than that, I felt free. Because she'd just verified everything. They did not love me. They did not respect me. They did not even recognize me as a person. They regarded me as nothing more than a financial account. A moving, breathing ATM. And the instant I stopped distributing money, I was nothing. And if that was the case, perhaps it was time to become nothing to them. Buzz. Another communication from my mom. Mom. This is your last opportunity, Emma. Send the rent. I stared at the message for a very long time. Then, without hesitation, I blocked her. I blocked my father, I blocked my aunt. And suddenly, for the first time in years, I was free. Or so I thought. Because the next day, my brother arrived at my home. The knock at my door sent shivers down my spine. It was early. It's too early. The sun was barely peeking over the horizon at this early hour, when most people were still sleeping. For a second, I considered ignoring it. Perhaps it was a neighbor. Perhaps there was a parcel. Maybe it wasn't what I thought it was. Then, another knock. This time, it was louder. Become more insistent. I took a slow breath, braced myself and walked to the door. My fingers paused on the handle, and my heart pounded in my chest. And then I opened it. There he was. My brother. His face contorted between fury and desperation, and his clothes wrinkled as if he hadn't slept. God's eyes. Bloodshot. Wild. Are you serious, Emma? His voice was as cutting as a sword shoved against my skin. What the hell is wrong with you? I blinked and kept my expression neutral. Good morning to you too. He scoffed and ran his hand through his already untidy hair. Don't do that. Don't act like this isn't a big deal. You blocked everyone. Mom is freaking out. Dad's losing his mind. You're just... What? Cutting us off? Pretending we don't exist? I crossed my arms and leaned against the door frame. I don't know, Jason. Maybe I just got tired of being treated like a piggy bank. His jaw clenched. Oh my God. Not this again, not this again. I gave out a sour laugh. Jason, I've been paying your rent for years. I've covered your bills, your food, even your stupid gym membership. And the one time I say no? The one time I set a boundary? Mom calls me a selfish brat, Dad says I'm unacceptable, and you show up at my door like I committed a crime. His lips parted as if he were going to argue, but no words emerged. So I continued going. And don't even try to pretend you care about me. I cocked my head, my voice cold. I saw the video. His face turned pallid. For the first time, genuine dread flashed across his eyes. What video? I smiled, but it was not a pleasant one. You know exactly what video. Jason shifted on his feet, looked aside as his hands balled into fists. Look, it wasn't serious, okay? We were just joking. You're being dramatic. Joking? My voice was soft, yet as sharp as glass. You all sat around laughing, calling me a pathetic failure. Saying I should be grateful for the chance to pay your bills. Do you know what that feels like, Jason? To hear your own family talk about you like that? He breathed sharply and rubbed his face. Emma, come on. No. I cut him off. You come on. You want money? Get a job. You want someone to take care of you? Find someone else. Because I'm done. Silence. He just stood there and stared at me. And for a little moment, I saw something spark across his face. Something rough. However, it was gone just as suddenly. You don't mean that, he grumbled. I retained his stare. Yes, I do. Another lapse in stillness. Then his expression darkened. His mouth curled into something unpleasant. Fine, he snapped. You want to be a selfish bitch? Go ahead. But don't come crawling back when you realize you have no one left. With that, he turned to walk away. I stood there, watching him leave. My chest was tense, yet my back was straight, because he was incorrect. I did have someone leave. I had myself. But, as I closed the door, letting out a trembling breath, my phone vibrated. I looked at the screen, and the familiar name flashed. It was my mom. But I was not going to pick up. Not this time. I had been at her mercy for so long. Her demands, her guilt trips, the way she used my own sense of duty against me, manipulating me into giving up all I had in order to keep her from breaking apart. Not anymore. I went away with the phone facing down. The truth was, I was done. I'm done with being a continual source of money. I'm tired of being the safety net that kept my family afloat when they couldn't be bothered to forge their own path in life. I'm done with lies and manipulation. They never asked me how I was doing. Never considered the toll it had on me to continually take up the slack. I had been carrying their weight for years. My mother's, my father's, and my brother's. All of them acting as if I owed them something, as if my life was just one long, endless repayment for everything they had done for me. But nobody had ever asked what I needed. Nobody had ever cared for me. And now, I was taking control. But my decision was not unnoticed. The following morning, when I sat in my living room, the silence felt oppressive. The weight of my decision was beginning to sink in. But there were no regrets. No second guessing. I had made the correct decision. Then, my doorbell rang. I was not surprised. It was Jason. I could tell by the way he knocked, demanding and impatient. This was the last person I expected to show up. But it's not surprising at all. I slowly opened the door, keeping my expression neutral. "Emma," he began, his usual arrogant tone gone, replaced by something almost pleading. "You need to listen to me." I did not welcome him in. I stood at the doorway, arms crossed. "I don't need to listen to anything you have to say, Jason." He blinked, taken aback. "No, you don't understand." His tone softened, almost desperate. "Mom's freaking out. Dad's calling me, asking what's going on. They don't know how to fix this? You've cut us all off. You can't just leave us hanging like this." I scoffed and leaned against the doorframe. "Oh, I'm sorry, did you think I was just going to keep enabling you? Keep paying your rent, your bills, and pretending everything was fine? No, Jason, I'm done. I don't care how much you or mom or dad beg. I'm done playing the role of the family ATM." His eyes flared with rage. "You're acting like we've never done anything for you. Like we're all just users, right?" I did not flinch. "Oh, believe me, I know exactly what I've been to you all. I've been a cash machine. A free ride. And I'm tired of it." Jason's face twisted. "You can't just leave us hanging like this. You owe us, Emma." The words stung. But they did not shatter me. They only made me more determined. "I owe you?" I said, my voice firm. "I've given you everything. I paid for your rent, your groceries, your bills, while you just sat there and watched me do it. And you want to talk about owing?" His fist clenched at his side. "You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off." I couldn't help laughing. "No, Jason. You'll regret it. Because I'm not the one who needs you anymore." Without waiting for his reaction, I slammed the door in his face. It felt nice. But I sensed that the drama was far from ended. Later that night, my phone vibrated again. I almost did not want to check it, but curiosity gnawed at me. It was from my father. "Dad. Emma, we raised you. Do not assume you can simply walk away from everything we've done for you. You're making an enormous mistake. Come back. We'll chat about it. We will fix this." I could almost sense desperation in his words. I sat there for a time, phone still in hand. I could have ignored it. I may also have blocked him. But I had a better idea. I wasn't simply going to block them. I was going to make them pay for every single lie, every single time they took me for granted. And it was going to start now. I stood up, approached my desk, and opened my laptop. It was time to deliver a message they would never forget. So I started typing. I sat at my desk, staring at my laptop's screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I wasn't going to sit back and let them reintegrate into my life as if nothing had happened. I was done being the punching bag. This time, I was in control. I thought about everything I had done for them. All of the payments I'd made, the bailouts. I swallowed my pride and helped them, even though I knew I was the one being drained. No more. Now was their turn to feel the consequences of their conduct. I opened my email and began typing. First, I gathered all of the financial records. Every payment I'd ever made on their invoices. Each bank transfer. Every check I'd sent over the years to compensate for their faults. It was time to remind them of the things they had taken from me. I added a remark to the top of the email. Here's a detailed summary of everything I've done for you over the years. I'm done being your lifeline. I'll no longer be your ATM, and I'll no longer let you make me feel guilty for choosing myself. Consider this my final invoice. You don't owe me anything anymore, but you will owe yourself the realization of how much I've sacrificed, all because I thought family was supposed to help each other, not drain each other. Then I added the receipts, bills, and payments I'd sent. But it was not the end. Definitely not. I signed on to the family group chat, which used to keep me on edge with their complaints and demands. I browsed through the messages, reading the ones where they said they needed me and guilted me into assisting them. Then I tried something I hadn't done in years. I responded. You all talk a lot about what you've done for me, but you've forgotten how much I've given up for you. And here's the reality check. You never needed me. You just used me. I'm done. This is my last message. Don't ever contact me again. I sent it. The silence that followed was nearly lovely. I slumped back in my chair, feeling the weight of the decision wash over me. For once, there were no more phone calls. No more guilt trips. No more pretending they had any authority over me. They might continue their manipulations, lies, and empty promises. I was free. But just when I thought it was finished, I got one last message. From Jason. You're making a mistake, Emma. You'll regret this. Family sticks together. I smiled to myself. I knew he was only attempting to get under my skin, but this time, it didn't work. Because I didn't need them. I had a life. My freedom. And it was enough. It wasn't the dramatic explosion I had envisioned. It wasn't a great clash. But in its own way, this was much better. I had assumed command without anyone seeing it coming. And the best part. They lost their control over me. As I turned off my phone for the night, a sensation of calm washed over me. I did not have to play their game. I didn't have to continue sacrificing myself for those who didn't value me. It wasn't the revenge I expected. It was quieter. Be more deliberate. And far more satisfying. Now I could finally breathe. And the best part, I could finally live for myself, and that, in the end, was the sweetest victory. Reflection. Wow, what a ride that was, right? It's incredible to think of how much Emma had to endure for so long. But in the end, she gained control of her life. I admire how she refused to let her family's conflict and guilt bring her down. Instead of a massive conflict, she simply cut them off quietly, but with force. Making a scene is not always the best way to exact revenge. It's about reclaiming your life and showing that you're no longer a doormat. But here's the thing, not everyone would have handled it that way. Some could argue that she should have pushed for the relationship. Maybe even give them a second opportunity. Others may believe she made the correct decision by removing them entirely. So what are your thoughts? Do you agree with Emma's decision? Was her silent vengeance satisfying, or overly harsh? Please share your ideas in the comments below. I would love to know what you think. My wife of 8 years had an affair and shattered me. Now I'm left picking up the pieces, trying to heal and be the best dad I can to our son. I, 31 am still rather devastated over all of this even now after divorce. Having turned in the final divorce decree, I am seated outside the courthouse. Last Wednesday, my cheating lousy wife, 30F, dropped by my office so I could have her sign the final papers. My brother and I manage a store, so we were busy, but I had her come to sign the last paperwork at the back. As I was working on some chores, she read it over. Then I saw she was at the last page staring at it, then at me. Not only peering, she seemed to be begging and had a tiny welling of tears. It was quite frustrating. I advised her not to engage in this garbage and to either sign or not. She opened her lips then closed them once again. Not to pull bullshit like this when she's dating and hooking with other people. I became enraged and instructed her to speak what she had to say. She has not expressed any want to mend our friendship. She signed the forms and left head down. We ended up talking in her car for a second after I had to hunt her down to ask about our stimulus money. She inquired about our son. He's not biologically mine, but I have been there for him since he was 4. Though I try to interact with him every morning, I informed her he doesn't really talk to me anymore. She only nodded and looked dejected. I gently informed her that I was allowing her one chance to speak her truth. She simply stared at me. Furious, I told her she never loved me first of all. She stated it wasn't true, tears running down her face. She wouldn't have considered cheating, I informed her, if she loved me really. Even when other ladies approached me, I had always been loyal. I always turned away as I knew my wife wouldn't enjoy it. I advised her to get in touch with me when she had my money. I wish I had known she didn't love me from the beginning. It would have saved time, effort, and suffering. It is killing me. The hearing scheduled to finish it all is tomorrow. I'm recuperating, rediscovering delight in things I used to enjoy, and loving exercise more. Though I can't seem to find it in me to truly talk to them or try for a date, I'm looking better, getting attention from women, and that's wonderful. Still, my heart longs for her. My heart still loves her. I wish I could take it out and bury it permanently. Though I know I have to go through these emotions and welcome this new life, I'm having trouble. The end of this procedure is surely bringing all these emotions to the forefront. Comments. You did what you were supposed to. You will need time to put this behind you. Her crocodile tears center on losing a home base to Monkey Branch. The greatest disrespect is cheating, and it never comes from a place of love. You're better off, time will help you move on. Thank you for your help, I am working on moving on. I have many I just wish ideas to shove aside and let go. OP. You adored someone she used to be. Today she is not that person. Though it is difficult, disconnecting takes time. If anything, I will use this time to heal and appreciate what I do today. It will make me a better person generally. You cannot simply switch off and on your emotions. Never give your morals or standards any concessions. Don't force yourself to start looking for another companion. Be selective and date when you are ready. Let alone offer my body to another woman. I am not looking to enter yet another relationship. The most I'm hurrying is trying to not feel anything for her. As you pointed out, it's a process. Sometimes, oh man, I do want to sacrifice my morals. I want to tell each parent of my son's soccer squad everything about the person she is and email blast all of them. I want to print flyers to plaster her preferred locations and publish it all over Instagram. But none of that is me. I know that person is not who I am. I'm just still hurting and really trying to mend. I greatly appreciate your nice comments and support. They really mean a lot. I understand that it seems so unjust and as if justice does not exist on our planet. Don't jump in the mud with the pigs. You'll get dirty too and be mistaken for a pig. My grandma often advised me. Never treat yourself less than that. While some individuals reject karma, indeed it is quite gradual but also meticulous. She will be revealed one day, or something will transpire to grant her the justice she so deserves. You only have to be loyal to yourself. Your children will also see it. They will know you as the one who did not devalue themselves. Just treat yourself politely. Update 1. Yesterday was that. Here I am today, single and most certainly in shock. Other than having this massive pit in my gut, I'm not sure how I should feel. She understood the timing of the hearing, but I find a Zoom call to the court to be just so impersonal. Of course, I realize, safety comes first. Still, it doesn't particularly feel real. It really hasn't really sunk me. I mean, I can acquire a copy of the signed document and declare myself to be divorced. A couple of my buddies want to know whether I want to go celebrate. They want to be there for me, they are lovely about it. They are not being nasty or resentful. And that feels great. I simply have not known how to approach this. I should be feeling free, yet maybe I should be crying once more. Oddly enough, I simply want to hear my wife's voice. Unfortunately, I no longer have a wife. Some stranger that sounds like her and wears her face. Though it's only a resigned kind of sensation, I can sense tears gathering. Here I am, simply me. Furthermore, my dog. I have very few friends, but they are the finest. I have a great and fantastic family. Thus, support is discussed. I merely feel empty, exhausted and drained. What should my next action be is unknown. Tell my son that it has happened over the phone. Say F it all, and go to Italy to begin exploring sites. Go back to Vegas with my old buddies for a desert recharging trip. I truly want to be laying here in silence, staring at the ceiling. Naturally though, life has to go on and so should I. I appreciate all of your support and ideas, especially book recommendations. I'm eager to at least start since I'm picking those up today. I never imagined myself in this place. Notes. Italy's timing is horrible, but whenever it becomes sensible, that has my enthusiastic vote. Vegas is a temporary prospect with friend events instead of the still skeletal and dreary casino resort life. Mountains and the weather are just beautiful. I left McCarran yesterday straight out. My friend, I find myself in the same boat. This afternoon at 3 o'clock I am signing paperwork. She departed and deserted our family on our 22nd wedding anniversary almost 2 years ago. I say every word you are using exactly. Simply said, I feel hollow and worn out by the struggle. Hang in there, friend, better things are just waiting for us. One breath at a time, one stride in front of the other, we simply have to be patient and gentle to ourselves. Recall this, we deserve better. Damn, I sense your words suffering. Regards, apologies. Update 2. The last post I produced was seen above the last time I blogged. Right now it's really upsetting me as I'm still kind of disoriented inside. Like me, my ex-wife, crazy to type it out, was off to work. At the same junction, we both stopped. She was turning right to ride on the freeway I had just left off, while I was going to turn left under the overpass. Like metal butterflies ripping up my insides, my heart and stomach sprang with the same familiar, exhilarating and lately terrible sensations. We made eye contact until the light changed, then each drove our separate directions. Both literally and metaphorically, I could not think of a more appropriate comparison for the state of affairs. Still feeling longing, grief, rage, disappointment, nausea, and a rainbow of other depression-inducing emotions, here I am typing out my pain. I wish I could be indifferent for the love of God. I wish I could rip out, root and all this deep-seated affection. Her and her stupidity justifies nothing. Though it's exactly what I want not to feel, is still in love with her. Her scent, her warmth, the sensation of her hair brushing against my face and mixing with my beard, the feel of her soft skin against my bare chest, the rhythm of her heart against my arms when I held her in the dark, these are the sweetest dreams I have of her. Recently they have been most vivid. She left such an effect on me when it was so darn simple for her to demolish everything we had created together. Yes, I understand it is past. Indeed, I understand the sensation might never go away. Indeed, I understand that processing trauma will take time. I am tired of processing though, of feeling the hurt, of sobbing, of reminding myself that it is okay to not be okay. I miss experiencing even-keeled. Every day seems like I'm standing on a platform precariously atop a damned barrel. Some days it's all good. I got this, balance can be kept. I've been doing it for 8 months, therefore I should be used to this. Other days though, I feel as though the agony of betrayal never lets me find even a tiny respite. I trip off the platform since right now equilibrium is useless. We can rather clearly tell the kind of day this one is. Usually, it becomes worse before it improves. I despise platitudes. Gang. Update 3, made the 3-week mark, the final post above. I watched our son's middle school soccer game yesterday and was so happy to see him. How much he has changed and how big he is. He's so darn tall, his voice is cracking, and it's weird not to have personally seen it. Feeling like I was being watched from the bleachers, I didn't see my ex-wife until practically half hour. I turned and our gazes met squarely. Her parents were seated with her. They lost the game, sadly, but the team rocked it still. I waited for the squad to pass over the bleachers as people filed off them. I nodded, using their first names, but her parents passed past if I hadn't uttered a word. I laughed and let the throng pass. Not over the phone or via text, it was great to hug my kid and chat with him personally when I waited for him at the team exit. The thrill of seeing each other once more permeated every moment. At last, my ex came up to tell our son loving words. Since I depend on her for those specifics, I asked her when the next game is scheduled. Our chat was clinical. We know we're not decent and most certainly aren't buddies. After instructing her not to sit next to me at the last game, I made that plain. Let's go, she tells our son, and he gives me a long embrace. I love him, I tell him. Though difficult, I do let go. I turn and go in the other way from my car, not looking at her or bidding farewell. The one I listened to and loved for almost a decade wants to run over and grab her, kiss those lips, hug her body in my arms, and feel her warmth and heartbeat, the one I feel slightly betrayed by my heart because of. I have to aggressively control it. Not until I come home and sit in silence to reflect on everything will there be tears. Even then though, they are few. I'm still figuring out these emotions. I still experienced additional wonderful dreams of hers till this morning. Once more, I feel as if I am fighting my own body and my own thoughts. I'm doing everything I can. I work out practically every day and eat clean with perhaps 1 or 2 cheat meals a week. I have poured myself into the business of my brother and find it to be flourishing. To be very honest, we never had this many staff members. It's fantastic. I am studying about stocks and investing, reading more, and certifying myself for IT jobs. Most of all, Jack, my corgi, is my other little kid and always wants to play. Filling the emptiness is odd. It certainly seems like a vast gaping void inside me. Being a father and a husband was great fun. As Hurricane Harvey approached Texas, we nearly decided to have another kid. In our house we were safe, dry, and not at all impacted. Though by November we knew she was pregnant, there were plenty of fun, crazy, and somewhat exotic events. Money, Space, and our present circumstances finally led us both to agree that we should stop the pregnancy and not have another kid. I wonder if things would be different, whether we would be at this place now, and if she would have **** at another person. This has started me thinking back. Yes, I know the what-if game is never a nice place to be, never a good thing to linger on, but lately it's just been emerging more and more in my mind, let alone the dreams, like I had last night of my beautiful wife and what could have been our little girl or our second little boy. It makes me miss my son even more, and it irritates me that she would not let me adopt him. She said that I could only after all this garbage had transpired. I apologize for the protracted post. I simply find myself repeating and ranting last night in my head. It hasn't even been a year since she broke off our relationship. I know it's still early and quite fresh following the divorce. I suppose all I can say is that today I'm not feeling it. It's almost 10 a.m. I haven't gotten out of bed. That she still affects me and how I feel every time I see her bothers me. Update 4. Hey everyone. At last I have developed an apathetic attitude. Other than that I'm feeling happier more consistently, I'm not really sure what to say. Right now I'm working out on a schedule, cooking more, and experimenting. I have been picking up writing once more and presently work on a short story. To see the Phoenix Suns defeat the Nuggets, I flew to Denver. I'm about to head to Oregon to visit a cousin, do some hiking, and try tubing in a new place. Though, my bond with my son is different. I got in touch, he seems really busy. Though man, this is what it feels like to have a full-on teenage son. I'm doing my best to be understanding. Lunch and meals here and there, I suppose I will grab what I can. Simply said, I miss being with him consistently. I now go on dates with someone. She manages her own companies, is just fantastic, independent, intelligent, strong, mature, runs slow here. She is aware of my circumstances and both of us are cautious not to leap in too quickly. Still, it's amazing. Our interests are somewhat similar, we have easy communication and our goals are rather apparent. Even now, when we are simply lounging about, it is just calm. I am attempting to keep myself from developing any negative habits or tendencies. Simply said, it is fantastic to feel good once more. She asked yesterday, what will happen if, and when another man gets involved with my son? To be honest, I'm not sure. If he doesn't reach out, then it's just me having to sit back and hope for the best for him. I will be there for him is all I dare think or say. In this I have no legal clout or rights. Fortunately, I have seen her face to her face and I truly don't feel anything for my ex. Though I'm trying to take it day by day and hope I keep recovering and finding happiness more and more, whatever that means, that my son and I can have a better relationship and that I not muck this up with this amazing woman. I appreciate your support, counsel, book recommendations and encouragement all around. That was therefore fleeting, tragically. The incredible woman was disturbed by my April divorce and feels that I'm not over her since I call our son asterisk our son asterisk. I just mention him in reference to co-parenting and the fact that I have to go through her for anything pertaining to him. I have a son. She's also saying she still has to recuperate from a breakup she went through 3 months ago with a guy she loved. I could see the healing, but I couldn't picture involving someone new with my son at this age. November is his 14th birthday. And it's *****ing strange when others tell me what I feel and get wrong. She also objects to being a stepmother. I never even brought up her young 4-year-old daughter. Once more, I am living that part of my life apart from this present one. Why is this troubling to me? Though in my past relationship I did nothing illegal, I feel like I'm marked. It's held against me after being honest with each other and such, just because I'm divorced and have a much older son who would most certainly never be part of the relationship. Feels quite unjust. If I tell people straight up about my circumstances, I'm accused of not being over my ex. I'm not being real about things if I hold that back and say nothing. Update 5. Some have wondered how this all started and how I got up where I am today, hence I attempted publishing this earlier as an explanation of what went down when things initially started. Though recent, this began in July of last year. Far from all this, I am appreciative of all the guidance, encouragement and kicks in the *** from those who have gone through it and are helping. Alright, so far as things stand, July 2020 started as if everything was going downward. June turned out fantastic. Together with our son and his friend, we had taken a brief trip. We had fun together and the intimacy was amazing. They hung out. July arrived and we were having problems, spats over dumb small things. She showed no desire in closeness. Her day would be of interest to me, but she exhibited no curiosity about me. Long bathroom stays and baths all the damn time, yet she wanted to gripe about not spending time with us. July passed like this. August started to get more tense. She even tried to present me with lingerie and stated it would be for my birthday, like if everything was normal. My birthday arrives, she gets me several LPs but nothing particularly noteworthy. I had a tough day at work. She did too apparently, and we ended up cooking and hanging around together. I reasoned, it's a workday and it's whatever. She seems not truly present but delivers intimacy. We had several major arguments in September at last, one of which she begged to have some alone time. Though this was suspicious, I became insane as I felt our marriage was falling apart. As correct as me. Taking the dogs, I headed to spend the evening with my brother and his family. I returned home early in the afternoon the following day. I never stopped her from hanging out with her friends. She had mentioned she wanted to go before I arrived. I arrived home at about 12 o'clock. At 6 or 7 she arrived home. Happy to see her, I told her when I saw her. She said the month was awful and that week was especially so. She was unpleasant, snarky, straightforward, nasty, not kissing me. I kept urging her to tell me what was going on. I wanted us to be fine. I sensed things were off. Now a quite good friend, an acquaintance, expressed concern after seeing me at work. I told him I loved my wife very much. We had been married for 1.5 at this point and had been together for 8.5 years, yet I had no idea what to do. He advised marriage therapy and advised reading *The 5 Love Languages* and another book I cannot remember right now. After reading the book right away I knew I had been giving work too much top priority. Our company is owned by my brother and me. Since COVID, we have been overrun as business has been flourishing. I never stopped trying to love her or be close, both physically and in talks, though even then. She had vanished though. I got home that same day and she was unwell. I looked after hers. As she was getting dressed the next morning, I gently and affectionately requested whether we might talk before she left. Having read the book all night before, I told her everything I had discovered. Although I said I had been lazy, I loved her and advised us to visit marriage counseling to try to mend things because we had our son and loved one another. She broke down crying and kept repeating I was going to hate her, hence anything I said must have set off her. She finally acknowledged that she had cheated on me last weekend when she was with her friends after being urged to be straight up with me. Though I was stunned and totally blown away, I loved my son, marriage and wife. Like a fool, I assured her everything was good, I could forgive her, but she had to come clean on everything. She then clammed up. No names, no information. Basically, she had been having an emotional affair until that day in September and had been chatting to the other man since July. How could I find her credible? I did not. I told her she had parodied our marriage and our vows. It was Thursday. She rejected and offered very little justification when I tried to have a conversation with her that evening. She said she had told the other guy she had confessed to me, but she never consented to discuss things. Friday comes around the same way. I'm dry heaving, haven't slept, feel eerie, furious, and damaged within. When Saturday finally arrived, my brother advised me to go home and go out what was happening after seeing the damage I was causing. She got up, started working out, and I stayed a mess all the while. I phoned my father, who had been the cheater in his marriage, but my mother and he sorted things out. Their marriage has been wonderful for 38 years now. I asked him for his opinion. He said, she understood exactly what she was doing. It's not a mistake. She has to decide. If she doesn't, that tells you all you need to know. Though a wreck, I got myself together. I made sure our son was looked after and tidied the house. I then descended to our apartment gym and instructed her to come see me after she finished. She showed up half an hour later, and I gently reminded her that she had to decide between our family and marriage or the other guy. All I got was, I don't know, and she requested for some time. I agreed on the stipulation that she not see or contact him. She agreed and headed for a 2-hour run. On an app, I could see her whereabouts. She returned, at last saw I had cleaned the place and started to cry. What she had decided, I asked her. Once more it was a profusion of I don't know. She muttered, it's over, at last as I pushed her. Okay, I answered. I grabbed a duffel bag, stuffed some clothes inside, and she started crying since I was truly leaving. I was crying too. My son is distracted with computer games, so he's good when I kiss him and tell him I'm going to spend a short time at his uncle's. I bail. I tell her I'll be back in the morning for my stuff. When I arrive at about 6 a.m. the next morning, I take trash bags right away and head straight into our bedroom, bathroom and closet to begin packing everything I own into them. Tears flowing, she sits up in bed staring at me. She probes me about what I'm doing and I tell her she made her choice. She begins to wail. Though it breaks my heart, my wife is also wanted once more. Like a fool, I lie in bed with her, embrace her and kiss her for half an hour. She has to come clean. I assure her it doesn't have to be this way. Silence. Furious, I yelled at her that all of this was useless. I pack and inform her my father and brother are at a cafe 5 minutes away, waiting for my call to assist with the heavy stuff. It is 11 a.m. by now, and I have bagged everything. She wants us to tell our son what? We go wake him and give him a farce of an explanation for poor communication. She says she would rather not see my family. She is embarrassed, hence I do not blame her. She brings our son shopping, and I can tell he's a little disoriented and bewildered. My dad and brother answer when I call. We took my 3 TVs and all the gadgets I had acquired to make our house smart. Naturally, I left my son all his great stuff. I love him and none of this is his fault. She texts me not to go and to wait for her and our son before I head off. I'm waiting. She finds the place looking as though it had been looted. She advises me not to go and notes that our son, enraged, knocked over a display and expressed desire we could still be a family. I give her a look that says nothing nice, and then I tell her naturally he does. I want to, but what the devil is she looking for? Once more with the I have no idea. I say remaining is pointless for me. She should notify her parents as, should they discover it from our kid, they would be enraged. The first week of October arrives next week. I attempt to keep our son on a routine. Some mornings I have to be at work early, so I show up for him, drive him to school, and make breakfast. On other mornings I take him to see his grandparents. I load everything on her parents when they inquire about what's going on. She is sticking to her foolishness even though I tell them we should mend things. I'm not clear. Having learned to love and respect one another, her dad is angry and depressed for me. She is texting me about how she hates herself and finds it hard to believe she accomplished all this. She is still chatting to the other man all through. She even inquires as to if we may get back together. I tell her she knows what she has to do if she wants me back. During the week, I pick up my son after practice and head home. I love him, thus I consent when he wants to show me something. We spent 1 hour in his room. She's a wreck when I walk out to the living room. She approaches me closely and wants me to sit down with her, encircling me with arms. I almost give in, but I get up and tell her I'm not doing this if she's still chatting to or involved with this man. She claims she cut it off, hence I sit down and hug her. We even gently kiss and I touch her. The phone then rings, a new ringtone, and I know she is panicking inside. From her end he has been phoning all day. I ask her to show me she stopped it and stare her in the eyes. She starts to cry and objects. She understands what she has to do if she wants me. I remind her once more. I'm still returning throughout the week to pick up my son from school and even cooking meals to store in the refrigerator. She is not doing laundry. I have to push myself not to do it for her. But I find my son smells from not washing and his blankets are dirty. Her neglect of him calls for me to chastise her. Her friends wanted to take her to the Renaissance Fair that weekend, and I find it amazing how she is acting as if everything is good. She asks whether I might spend a few hours watching our son. I want time with him, therefore I say yes, but even I know I'm not really ready for that. I agree otherwise as well. 4 additional lads walk out and get in my car when I show up after work to fetch him up from his friend's house, probably a sleepover. Not at him, but at her, I am enraged. She understands from my call that I would be leaving should she not return. She is behaving all piffy about it and it takes 3 hours to return. She has the arrogance to argue that spending her birthday with pals shouldn't cause her guilt. She took advantage, and this is never going to happen again. She should feel horrible given all that is going on. Weeping, she asks, what, am I only supposed to be a mother? I don't say anything about that either, but god damn it, yes, you picked this before I even entered the scene. We chat a little longer, and she even invites me to stay, to sleep in the same bed and be close. I turn it down and head off. My son strikes me as depressed. Even though it's taxing both financially and emotionally, I keep seeing him since now I'm just 45 minutes away. Her parents just know what I have told them since she is avoiding them too. This is October 25th, the birthday of my ex. Things have been strange. I am shamefully performing the pick-me dance. Monday here, and I'm sending nice video greetings, but she seems apathetic about it. I start with a little present, working my way up, then I go in the morning to look after our son, drive him to school, and then I do what I always do on her birthday week. I cleaned off a picture of the 3 of us at a pumpkin patch when we first got acquainted. It's a lovely image. I developed this itching inside me just before leaving. Though I had no idea what set off me, I started looking about. Opening a fresh shoebox I discovered a new vibrator, a new dildo, and new butt plugs within. When I left I had tossed every toy we owned. She preserved the container as well, and the postmarks date the day I left. Even a gift note including the man's name. Then I found a note tucked within the shoebox. It came from a woman, but her last name matched that of the AP's other gift note. Opening it, I came upon a picture of a family. 2 small boys, a baby, a dog, a guy and a lady. Along with it was a letter informing my ex that she might retain AP but had wrecked her marriage. The woman clarified that she had learned about him from the toys he had sent. I snapped pictures and went right to her parents to show what I had discovered. Get a lawyer, get all my ducks in a row, and then file, her dad advised me, same counsel many of you had given me. That same day I did that. When it arrived a few days later, I handed her the paperwork. We sat on it for months. We attended soccer matches, had a few private evenings, but I wouldn't dare sleep with her even though the chance presented itself. At one soccer game, she eventually observed that I wasn't really at my best. I prodded till she said she was seeing someone. That following week, I turned in every file. We seem caught up right now. Update 6. I returned to the same vacation location I visited last summer in order to snowboard. Just me out here, this was my first true adventure. All wholly mine. I never made the trip to serve as a kind of diversion or anything else. I visited the slopes 10 years ago and performed rather well. I can't describe how emotionally satisfying it is to be without the drag of my ex-wife, who hated everything outdoors, let alone snow or cold. Snowboarding has always made me happy. I was thumbing my ring finger trying to spin the long-gone ring as I strolled throughout the city. Though we had been separated almost 2 years ago, seeing couples engage in Valentine's Day activities somewhat weighs on my heart. It's strange. I suppose I miss having the ring there, especially what the ring ought to have symbolized. Ultimately, though with my ex, it was only a lump of metal and a false promise. I guess I'm simply reflecting, but I can't describe how quite dreamy this has been. After hurting so terribly, the happiness, enthusiasm, laughing and foolishness that have permeated my life seem amazing. Hell, I'm sore and in pain beyond what I can recall from the last time I went snowboarding, but this ache is one I have totally missed. For those of you who are struggling, however, cliched as it seems, it does indeed get better with time. Spend some time grieving and hurting, then go forward. Improve yourself for yourself. I appreciate everyone being there and listening. Update 7. The divorce occurred 2 years ago. This is the month the divorce was finalized. As the title suggests, the dreams are resurfacing. Strange seems to be the situation. Dreaming, we find ourselves at a house I have never seen before. She begs me to accompany her upstairs. We both are nude. We arrive upstairs to what looks to be our room, and she looks me up and down, giving me that smile I remember and liked, then says, "Hi." I have nowhere to start. She walks up, puts her hands in mine, and all I can say back is, "Hi." She presses her body into mine and I encircle her in my arms. Her beautiful skin and warmth really speak to me. She smells her shampoo even now. Actually, I'm pleased my dog woke me up seconds later. This is my second dream for this month. Not since last November, not seen my ex in months. Emotion such things is strange. More of a what the heck kind of emotion. One reason all of this is happening could be my recent house building on my own. I guess I'm just sort of airing out my mind. Today feels odd. My warmest wishes go out to those of you hurting. Update 8. I met with my son yesterday in great anticipation. Since his last birthday, I had not heard anything significant from him. It has been killing me. Again though, I understand how teenagers behave and I'm sure he has a lot on his plate with his middle school to high school change. His mother's obnoxious boyfriend is also a factor. To be honest, when he at last picked up the phone, I got rather happy. Our chat was nice. It took a moment of me telling him what I'd been up to, building a house, our corgi getting older, and as always, our love of video games, to pull him out of his shell. High ranking in Rocket League, he has been invited to a competition including pros scheduled for Twitch broadcast. I really am thrilled for him. We should keep chatting. He promises to email me the link. From his now totally different voice I take it as a little triumph that he still thinks of me as dad. I am flattered and happy. My heart started feeling it once more a few hours after our afterglow conversation. It was more of a dull ache, just aching deep down within me. It hurt and bothered me enough to cause me to hardly sleep last night. Seeing my attitude, my father asked what was bothering me. I first found it difficult to actually put it into words, but the second time he asked, it came naturally. The weight and suffering still exist even if I'm completely happy when I have my son and can still be a part of his life in any manner he chooses. It's enough to keep my head spinning over why. At this point, I realize the cause has no bearing on anything or would provide comfort. Everything is done and accomplished, however even 2 years down the road it is still fresh and painful. My pride in being my son's dad and my emotions of love and admiration for him are so entwined with the love I had for my ex, which now simply acts as a painful reminder every time I see him. Though I can't say I know what you're feeling, coming from this side of your situation, you may need to ask yourself if the pain and suffering are worth it for your mental health and general well-being. My father, a cheater in his own time but someone who makes amends and keeps on doing so, told me. Though you love him with all your being and the time you spend brings enormous delight, it follows days of rehabilitation for you. I am not advising you to give up on him as, if it were me trying to be there for you, I would never stop. Perhaps you should nonetheless, let go of everything. You gave all you have. I haven't seen you this joyful in a long time. Still, I can see the toll it takes on you. Your emotions divided between your love for your son and the anguish you obviously still have from how you were deceived. I understand he's acting as a father, seeing obvious suffering on my face while his son battles. He would never want it lastingly. Given the lengths of his military training, which trained him to detach himself and view events from several angles, I take it as his attempt to provide wise guidance. He does not intend to just vanish from my son's life, I'm sure. Maybe he only wants me to keep outside of it all. Perhaps he only wants to spare me the suffering still afflicting my heart. Just letting my ideas float about. My best wishes extend to everyone suffering right now. Particularly to those in healing, remain strong and keep cheerful. Comments. OP, your first response and attitude to him calling were exactly perfect. For a teen especially, this is all quite challenging ground to walk. Talk not of his mother, her partner, or their domestic situation. Create an oasis out of yourself and your relationship with your son. Be in his life a non-judging lighthouse. Should the matter come up, avoid pledging yourself to a position. Still keep your distance and objectivity. Find out his short-term bucket list. Perhaps you two might handle a few of those jointly. Luck. I agree absolutely and thank you. Out of our conversations, I make sure to keep any reference to his home situation or anything about his mother away. I concentrate on talking about just him and me and avoid passing opinions. Though it feels like negotiating in the dark, I am trying to assist him with a list. That's the intensity of my affection. I won't give up on him. Thank you for the guidance. I will keep making sure that what we publish is a refuge. Uncovering a decade of secrets, suspecting my husband fathered his best friend's kids and now one wants to date our daughter. OOP is married to Luke who has a girl BFF Amy who he claims is like a sister to him. Even after getting married Luke maintained a very close bond with Amy. OOP has 4 kids. Sophie, 15, Owen, 12, Louise, 10, and Carter, 6. Amy has 4 kids. Tom, 17, Kaylee, 14, and twins, Adam and Jenna, 9, but no one knows who the dad is and has never been in any long-term relationships. All the kids have grown up together and are close. OOP has begun to suspect that Luke has fathered at least one, if not all of Amy's kids. Amy stopped having kids after Luke had a vasectomy. The kids also look like Tom. OOP has turned a blind eye for years, but now Tom wants to date Sophie. OOP is worried they are actually half-siblings and Tom and Amy also don't want it to happen. Update. The 5th of September 2024 OOP doesn't try a sneaky DNA test, but confronts Luke and Amy who deny anything untoward and Amy refuses to have her kids' DNA tested. Luke's mother also suspects something. OOP and Luke have a big fight and he spends the night at Amy's. Update 2. The 6th of September 2024. OOP confides in Sophie about what she suspects about Tom's real father and is surprised to find out that the kids already suspect this and the relationship was actually a plan to get things out in the open and force the truth from Luke and Amy. OOP plans to move ahead with a divorce and try to get a DNA test done as well. Update 3. I think my husband fathered his best friend's children, and now one of them is attracted to my daughter. 3 days later. First, a few points to answer from the comments. I don't have any DNA test results back yet. That can take weeks. But now that I know Sophie is in no danger of dating a relative, the pressure is off. I'll get into this momentarily, but it frankly no longer matters if Luke fathered the children. I highly doubt my father-in-law is having an affair with Amy. At worst, he might know, or even just suspect, the truth about Amy and Luke. But it's also possible that he just refuses to believe they would do such a thing. I've been vague about details for privacy, but to put it very simply, Jim and Amy are both pretty white. Kat and Luke are not. Had Jim fathered Amy's babies, they would look different than they do. Nevertheless, I do have an update. While a stream of comments have called me spineless and naive, called me a sister wife, as an ex-Mormon, that hits a particular nerve. And most recently, a stream of comments have said my story is fake. Fair enough, it's the internet. But Luke is not the first scumbag husband to have two families. Several other comments have been incredibly kind and supportive, and I really appreciate that. Apologies if I haven't responded to a comment or direct message that you sent. I covered as many as I could, but I was literally getting hundreds, so I definitely missed several of them. First things first. I discussed this in the comments, but our little team has, supposedly, recruited my mother-in-law. I say supposedly, because Sophie and Tom were going to talk to her about getting help with submitting the DNA test, and, at the advice of my lawyer, I am staying out of the process. Officially, I told Sophie not to do it, and she said she wouldn't. MIL hasn't contacted me about it either. Though we have been in touch, I'll get into that more in a moment. The bottom line is that I can honestly say I had no knowledge of any DNA test. Loophole City. Another bit of good news. I was digging through the paperwork in preparation for my divorce, wanting to get a head start against Luke, and one thing that came to my attention is that my name is on the paperwork for our home. Luke's name is not. I was the one who bought the house, and we always planned to add Luke onto the paperwork at some point, but we never got around to it, and eventually the idea was forgotten. It was my lawyer, Paige, who pointed this out to me, and it was like finding a winning lottery ticket on the ground. I don't know where I'd be without Paige. She's a dear friend from college who I reached out to, hat in hand, for help. She's been there for me this past week, not just as legal counsel but as a friend I really needed right now. The thing is, she's not our lawyer, me and Luke. We have our own family attorney who has helped us out of jams in the past. We clashed with our HOA a few years ago, not worth getting into right now. But Paige is a lawyer who specializes in family law and has handled divorces before. Luke remembers her from college and knows she went into law but doesn't know she's a divorce attorney. So I can have her over for coffee like we're catching up, and he has no idea anything is going on. Turns out, he's not the only one who can harbor someone under his spouse's nose under the guise of being a friend. So, on to the update. The last time I looked in Luke's phone was 3 months ago, around the point Sophie and Tom began to go around claiming they wanted to date. I found nothing. While I know how to search for recently deleted photos and didn't see any, my comments taught me how to find recently deleted messages. So when Luke was asleep, I did just that. Swiped his phone and brought it downstairs, checked recently deleted. I am glad I did, but I also wish I had not, because I'm still reeling from the pain. Sure enough, a conversation with Amy had been deleted. Recent text talking about the conflict between her and me, with Amy describing me as a problem, and Luke trying to pacify her. Without defending me at all, to be clear. They both alluded to how they had expected this for a while and just hoped it would never happen, presumably me accusing them of having an affair. While the whole conversation and the fact that it was deleted was sketchy, nothing was actually admitted. So I scrolled a bit higher, to a few days before the fight. Amy's messages got a bit more flirty. Then, I saw it. 5 days before I confronted them, Amy had sent Luke a topless pic. A selfie with no shirt or bra. Guys, I teared up. I knew it was true. I knew it in my bones, but seeing the proof still cut me like a hot knife. Doesn't help that Amy's always had bigger breasts than me. I exited the Messages app and checked Luke's recently deleted photos. Sure enough, the same selfie was there, and others. Amy topless, Amy naked, in various poses to show off. There were pictures of the two of them together, cuddled and pressed close like a couple. In some of these she was naked. In some, they both were. There were videos. Amy sent Luke a video message of herself topless, and I had to actually hear her voice talking to him in a tone that made me sick, about how she was sending him a quick video to help him get through the day. In more than one video she called him her boo, and, hearing her call him that, I almost vomited. Stopped looking at the point, I'd seen enough. For about 5 minutes anyway, then a strange compulsion to keep searching led me to check Luke's laptop. I knew enough of his passcodes to access his iCloud storage and, yeah, basically more of the same. There were letters, long letters between them. I didn't have the heart to read past the first few lines of one of them, but I did read Luke mention our children. There were countless naked topless selfies of Amy. Selfies of them together. Videos where Amy appeared to be masturbating. There were sex tapes. Of the two of them. Tom had previously offered to try and hide a camera in Amy's room, but fuck, he never needed to. Luke was hiding a whole treasure trove under my nose all along. I scrolled, and scrolled, and scrolled. There were so many. Going back years. Not all of it was even sexual. There were some photos of Amy's kids too. One video was of Kaylee and the twins playing together when they were younger, and Luke and Amy's voices from behind the camera. There were even old pictures of Luke and Amy from when they were younger. I'd even say teenagers. I snapped. All these years I had been telling myself I had to be wrong, that it couldn't be true. Well, it was true. I know that no one forced me to look at as much of the evidence as I did, but I'm still hurting very badly from having seen it, and in that moment, I wanted to act, so I did. I called my lawyer, who is a remarkable woman. It was the middle of the night, so I had to call her twice, and she picked up. Though I had woken her, when I asked her to come by and said it was an emergency, she agreed. I also asked her to draw up the paperwork and have it ready. She told me that she'd already had it ready since I first reached out to her. As I waited for her, I went through the necessary channels on Luke's laptop to make sure he wouldn't be able to remotely disconnect our access to his little stash, changing passwords and all that. My lawyer, let's call her Paige, arrived, and I went outside to greet her in the car. Spent a good half hour in the passenger seat just crying, and she was great about that, before I passed her Luke's phone and his laptop, with all the information she needed to use them. She warned me that this could be considered theft. So I asked her to forward and print out copies of everything she could and then bring the items back, because I just couldn't bear to do it myself. She agreed. I went back inside, and then, I packed up Luke's things while the house slept. At one point Owen got up to use the bathroom and asked me what I was doing, but I told him I was just cleaning. Luke stirred once or twice while I was in the bedroom but did not wake. I got all of his things packed into trash bags and I loaded up the car. That's when I woke him up and told him to come outside. He was confused and half asleep, but he did notice things were missing. I ignored his questions and just told him to come with me. So he followed me outside. Once we were by the car, I pulled out the divorce papers and officially handed them to him. That was about when he figured out what I was doing, and he tried to talk me out of it. Tried to be sweet with me, to be tender. He kept insisting that he loved me and that there had never been anything with Amy. Kept trying to persuade me not to tear our family apart. Even 2 weeks ago, I might have wilted under him because the manipulation and gaslighting were truly masterclass, but I can see through it now. I didn't tell him that I knew he was full of shit, I didn't tell him what I had seen, I just told him we were finished. He tried a different approach. He refused to go. Stated firmly that our children were his too and that even if we were separating, I had no right to just decide the kids would stay with me over him. This was where I very coldly presented the paperwork reminding him that the house is in my name, and told him under no circumstances would my kids be staying with Amy. He argued a while longer, but in the end he decided to be the bigger person, and keep the peace. At that moment I didn't care where he went. Before he left, he did ask about his phone and laptop, and I waved him off by saying they were in one of the bags. Bought a little time. I couldn't sleep for the rest of that night. I cried more. Eventually I realized I'd have to wake my children up early and explain to the extent that I could. Naturally, I woke Sophie first. I told her that I had kicked her father out and that I had discovered evidence of an affair on his devices. I did not specify what kind of evidence, and she did not ask. I woke up the others and gently told them that their dad had gone to stay somewhere else for a while. That I wasn't sure where, but from now on things were going to be different. Louise was the one to ask if we were getting divorced, and I couldn't lie to her. I told her yes. Owen asked when they could see their father again and I wanted to cry. Sophie was a very big help, urging her siblings to be sympathetic to me right now and worry about Dad later. I knew better than to poison them against their father. Paige warned me against doing that as well, so I only told Sophie that the affair was confirmed since she had already been in the know. However, as the kids were getting ready for school, Owen approached me and asked me point blank if it was about Amy. If Luke was going to be with her instead of me. I couldn't answer, but I suppose that's an answer on its own. Got the kids to school, and my next step was calling to have the locks changed. I knew Luke would be back for his devices before long, but thankfully Paige returned with them before he showed up again. It was a very quick visit. She just told me that all was accomplished, and she had records of everything we would need in court. Sure enough, Luke turned up an hour later demanding to know where his laptop and phone were. I had set them back in our bedroom like they had never moved, and I just told him he had forgotten them. He insisted that I had said they were in one of the bags, so I just shrugged him off and told him I must have been mistaken. After he grabbed them, he tried again to reason with me, but I just showed him the door. I knew the kids would start to come home from school before long and I think he was trying to delay leaving so he could see them. I was not having it. I started shouting again and sent him on his way. I'm still just in absolute pain and despair for what I saw. I don't know if he'll realize that anyone went through his devices and made copies of the evidence, or if he suspects I saw anything, But he obviously didn't say so. After he left, I cried once again. Talked to my mother-in-law that night. Apparently Luke did show up to his parents' house, which was a surprise, as I was so certain he'd stay with Amy. But maybe even he knows how suspicious that would look to the children and doesn't want to rock the boat as much. Maybe he knows I'm more likely to let my children see their grandmother than Amy at this point, and he wants to see them to give his version of events. That is not happening. Kat already shared his version with me, that he relayed to her and Jim. That I'm having some kind of mental breakdown, that he wishes he could help me, but my paranoia is causing me to lash out and turn violent. I was never violent. I shoved him away when he tried to hold me, that is all. And what's so hilarious is that he didn't mention Amy at all to his parents. He didn't even frame it as me falsely believing he was having an affair. Even though that's his story when talking to me, he left Amy out of it when talking to his parents. Kat noticed that. She believes me. Jim doesn't know what to believe anymore. According to Kat, he seemed very troubled by what he heard from all sides. As for Amy, she's radio silent. Tom has told Sophie that she's acting like nothing is wrong but is clearly stressed out. That when her children ask, she makes the same sort of claims. That I'm having some kind of emotional nervous breakdown and pushing her away as well as Luke. She doesn't mention anything about my accusing them of an affair, but still puts it all on me. Amy has not reached out to talk to me directly, and I have not tried talking to her since our big argument. I haven't really told my kids anything, just that I'm having disagreements with Luke and Amy, though I was very clear that it is not a question of my mental health. Honestly, I think they all kind of know what's going on. Sophie continues to be my rock, as I try to be for her and the others, and Tom continues to be our spy in the ranks. Right now, my biggest regret is the stress that all of this is causing on the children, which I knew it would, but it still needed to be done. My life has fallen apart. But it was never my life. Comments. Comment 1. Owen asked if it was about Amy. All of your kids must have seen and heard things from them when they thought they weren't being observed. Please get them into counseling soon. You are amazing, stay strong and calm, that will negate all claims of you having a mental breakdown. You've got this. Comment 2. All the people who talked about keeping the kids together were off their rockers. Her 12-year-old knew there was something wrong and they have been constantly thrown into a situation that was uncomfortable for them. OP has to start putting her kids first. Comment 3. If this is fiction, nicely done. If this is real, you got this. Comment 4. This is how I feel. There's so much effort put into the story even if it was made up by her or AI, I'm all in. Comment 5. Oh, OP. I think I was secretly holding out hope that this would all turn out okay. But, life is not a fairy tale. It was a very brave thing you did, going through his devices and facing this truth. Kind of like breaking your own heart, you knew what you would find. I'm so proud of you. I can't imagine the strength it took to quietly pack his things while he slept peacefully in bed. Sounds like Luke is a master manipulator. The most recent convo with Amy even talked about knowing this would happen. He had a cover story to explain being kicked out locked and loaded. Curious to see how he can spin this into your fault once the truth comes out. I would inquire with your attorney about putting in a stipulation in your divorce decree that Amy not be allowed around your children or under the same roof during his custody times. Amy is a vile, disgusting woman and that's a hill I would be willing to die on. You can't do anything about Luke being around your children, but you can put any kind of stipulation like this built into your divorce decree. Seems you have done everything you could at this point. No matter how difficult it has been, you face the truth and now you will be able to live the rest of your life without a nagging thought at the back of your mind constantly. Don't stop updating. OOP, life is not a fairy tale indeed. You're right, the nagging worry is at least gone. In a way, I think not finding anything would have been worse, because it would have perpetuated the ambiguity. After talking to Tom I was all but certain but it was still possible to be a misunderstanding. That it wasn't true. Now I know for sure. And I hate knowing, but at least the question isn't hanging over me anymore. It's tricky, because them not being allowed to see Amy is going to impact their ability to see their best friends, half-siblings. If being my husband's affair partner was all it took for me to demand she not be allowed to see the kids. I feel like a lot of divorces would have clauses like that but I never hear about it. I don't want Amy seeing my kids but I'm not sure how realistic that is. Comment 6. I honestly don't understand why Luke and Amy went through all this trouble. No one was stopping them from being together at the beginning. Why do all this? They're literally psychotic. They're gonna start painting you as a crazy person to your circle, social media soon. Do you think you can get ahead of the curve and tell people the truth? Social media. Without including the photos, videos but screenshots maybe. Of course only if your lawyer approves. Or at least once the divorce proceedings have started and Luke and Amy knows just how much evidence you have. If not, they're gonna spin the story as you went crazy and divorced Luke and they looked to each other for support and fell in love. I know you think no one will believe that story, but it's important your narrative gets out. New update. 3 days later. In my last post, there were a number of criticisms toward Paige. You guys will like this update. As it turns out, you weren't the only ones who had a problem with her. As far as the deed being in my name, it's not an absolute hook, line and sinker, but Paige is convinced that between that and my having been the one paying the mortgage, I stand a very good chance. It could be interpreted as a common marital property, but I'm going for primary custody with supervised visits anyway. I'm playing hardball. People also questioned whether I should still be posting these, but so long as it's all anonymous, I am in the clear. Doesn't even matter if someone who knows me could figure out I posted this. I didn't use any real names, or reveal my location, or anything like that. As for the laptop, even Paige admitted that was questionable, but technically I gave permission and she was only doing what I could have easily done on my own. I just really didn't want to go through all of that content. As far as the divorce papers, Paige had them filled out after the very first time I contacted her. My serving them to Luke was ceremonial. She still contacted him later to officially serve him and request his lawyer's details. But before he could respond, I had already done something a little sneaky. I reached out to our family attorney, the one who has always been on call to represent me and Luke during our marriage. He helped us out of a jam with the HOA a while back. I'll call him Zach. Now, contrary to some of the comments' suggestions, I cannot just go around town consulting with every lawyer in the area, with the explicit purpose of locking my husband out of hiring them. That is bad faith and judges don't look too kindly on it. However, this was Zach. He had been my attorney, and Luke's, for years. I feel like I had just as much right to him as Luke did. And I got there first. So I was able to nail down our family's lawyer. Met with both him and Paige, and boy howdy, do they not like each other. Zach brought up some of the same problems as some of my comments. He argued that Paige's activity was in the gray area and urged me to hire him to represent me in the divorce instead. That caused a bit of conflict as Paige is explicitly a family attorney and this is her specialization. So I'm going to be consulting both of them from here on out. Zach actually thinks it's a good thing that I made these posts as they can't really do much other than prove my sanity when Luke and Amy try to argue otherwise. Overall, I am doing better. I've been talking to a friend in real life, the mom of one of Sophie's friends. I also have therapy scheduled for myself, and I intend to look into family therapy as well. When my kids ask me what's going on, I simply tell them that their father and I are having adult problems and it's nothing they need to worry about. That worked for about a day. Sophie warned me they were planning to confront me as a group, and they did, asking if Dad had cheated on me with Amy. Obviously they've been talking about this, and perhaps they have been for longer than I had anticipated. Perhaps they've been wondering? Again, even though I had absolute proof, I was hesitant to tell them as much, and let me explain why. I naturally wouldn't tell them about the pornographic content I found. I would simply say that I found messages between Luke and Amy revealing their affair, but, with the exception of Sophie, they wouldn't be satisfied with that. I already know Carter, curious little sweetheart that he is, would want to see these messages. So instead, when I was asked directly by my kids if their dad had cheated on me, I simply said I believe he did, yes. With as much sincerity as I could muster. I think they believe me. Tom and Sophie are texting nonstop and from what I can gather, there's doubt among Amy's children as well, that this is about me losing my mind, and not about their mother being too close to my husband. I think it's slowly sinking in for poor Jim that what he didn't want to believe was possible is very much possible, and it's happening. I haven't shown him or Kat any letters or anything. They're hosting Luke, so I haven't had much of any contact with them at all. But I did have one phone call with Kat where we wished each other well. That was nice. In the background, I could hear shouting and though Kat quickly went outside, I did hear what sounded like Jim shouting at Luke. He doesn't usually shout. He's the calmest man I've ever met. So in a way I'm worried about him but also relieved that the wool is being pulled off of his eyes. According to Kat, Luke is still staunchly denying everything. He was pretty upset when he found out that I had poached Zach though. Which gave me a kind of grim satisfaction. The test results came back. Sophie and Tom tested their DNA against each other to see if they truly are blood siblings. Here's a surprise. According to the test, they're not. They don't share any DNA. To everyone who believed Jim had fathered Amy's babies, here is definitive proof that he did not, because the test would have revealed that too. But I never believed it anyway. Sophie has her doubts and wonders if the results weren't faulty and if we shouldn't take another test to be absolutely certain. But I'm not really worried about that. More confused than anything. I was so certain Tom had to be Luke's son. He was too. Now he doesn't know what to think and I don't either. I obviously now know the affair happened and lasted years, and I know from the letters that Kaylee is Luke's child, or at least both he and Amy seem to believe she is, which confirms they were intimate 15 years ago. Now I'm just wondering for Tom's sake. Who if not Luke is his father? He does kind of look like Luke, but that might just be coincidence. In general, everything was quiet for a few days until it wasn't, until she finally showed her face. My best friend Amy. I am so happy I installed Ring cameras everywhere, as you are about to understand. Sure enough, Amy turned up on my doorstep and asked to talk. She had a relaxed demeanor and did not raise her voice. Assuming she was approaching me on Luke's behalf, I told her that I wasn't interested in talking to her and to just go away. She did not leave, but she didn't make a scene either. She persisted in telling me we needed to have a conversation. The kids weren't home, and did have cameras inside. I was also recording her on my phone and being discreet about it. So eventually I relented and let her in. I don't know if she realized she was on camera. We sat down on the couch, and she instantly got into the reason for her visit. Turns out, she and Luke know, or suspect, that I procured damning material from his laptop. Amy accused me of going through his devices and told me that anything I found was not my business and I needed to delete it. That was all she had to say. No apology, no admission of guilt, didn't take responsibility for her own behavior. Hell, she might have known I was recording her, because she didn't even directly acknowledge what the sensitive material on Luke's laptop actually was. So I confronted her, letting out some of my anger. I asked how she could have the nerve to make demands of me. I asked her why she and Luke would do a thing like this in the first place. Why had they seen fit to spend all these years betraying me? I posed the question that I'd been wondering about for a long time, and as I expected, I got no answer. Literally, Amy didn't seem to really hear me even as I confronted her. She seemed like she was stressed. Panicked even. But she was keeping it under wraps. She ignored my questions and accusations and just kept telling me to delete whatever content from Luke's laptop that I had. She said that if I wanted to divorce Luke, that was my call, but not to drag her into it. Oh, that made me so mad. I kept my temper, but I did snap back that she was already very much in it. Amy just kept repeating herself, telling me to delete whatever I found. So I just refused. I asked her, point blank, why I should. Why did I have any reason to? Amy got more aggressive, raising her voice. She was trying to intimidate me, but I held my ground. She told me that this wasn't about me and that I needed to just do as she said. That it was very important. So I asked again, why? And yet again, she would not answer. So I asked her if Luke had sent her to do this or if she had shown up on her own. No answer to that either. It was like talking to a brick wall. So I asked her to leave. Just as I'd been afraid of, she wouldn't go. She refused to leave until I had deleted everything I'd found in front of her. I couldn't help laughing. I told her no, that wasn't going to happen. This is where I could see her starting to freak out more. In another moment, she got up, ran into the other room, and grabbed my laptop. Before I could stop her, she smashed it on the floor. I really don't know why she thought that would work or get her the outcome she wanted. I think she was just panicking. Obviously, I still have everything, except now I need to buy a new laptop. And sadly, her doing this was out of frame of the camera, but it's fine. All of my important files are backed up, and at that moment I was more concerned that Amy would do something else drastic. She looked like she was going to have a breakdown. I tried again, very calmly, to tell her that she needed to leave or I would call the police. She refused again and just kept repeating her demand that I drop this whole cheating angle and divorce Luke without trying to argue that an affair took place. At that point I just stared at her. At the woman I had considered one of my dearest friends in all the world. And I told her that I didn't owe her anything, but she owed her children the truth. That they had the right to know where they came from. Who Luke really was to them. Amy bristled and told me it was none of my business, that I didn't understand her family and I needed to back off. She kept going back to this idea that I could divorce Luke, but I must not claim he'd had an affair with her. I just told her that I didn't need her permission to handle my divorce how I wanted and told her again to leave. She got more and more desperate, and her anger accelerated to the point that she physically attacked me. I did not expect her to actually do this. I'm not much of a fighter, but I do know the human body pretty well, and where it's weakest. She hurt me pretty badly, but I got her off me. That part was very much on camera, and the whole audio was recorded on my phone. She finally left after that, and I immediately called to file a police report. I had the strangest feeling she'd try something similar and wanted to beat her to the punch. I was able to clean myself up by the time I had to face my kids, and while I downplayed the story, I did not lie to them about why I had a black eye. I told them, for their own safety, to steer clear of Amy. I also sent the footage to Paige and Zach, as well as pictures of my injured state before I cleaned up. They've also printed out the letters that reference Kaylee as Luke's child. I really feel like Amy just screwed herself over on all this. I don't know what her motives were. Was she protecting Luke? Was this his idea? Does she just really not want the world to know she's a homewrecker? Is she covering her own ass? As if people didn't know already. The more of my social circle I talk to, and inform of the basics, the more people confess that they had wondered in the past if Luke wasn't cheating on me, but didn't have any concrete proof. I suppose Amy doesn't want her kids to know who fathered them, which does line up, but I'm still not sure about Tom. I didn't ask Amy about him in particular. I don't know why you guys are so eager for these updates, but I don't mind posting them. I've never blogged about my life before. I'd imagine it feels something like this. Comments. Comment 1. I'm so sorry that she had gone to your home and attacked you. Glad you still have the evidence and didn't back down. I have a feeling that she is wanting you to delete the stuff because maybe your in-laws have threatened to cut her off financially if it is true. Thank you for the update. Hope you're healing. OOP. I could see that being the case. Comment 2. Oh, to be a fly on the wall when Luke finds out that the children he thought were his actually belong to someone else and that his mistress has been cheating on him for years. It would be so, satisfying. He will lose not only his wife and mistress but also some of his children. Not to mention losing the respect of the children he had with you. He's headed straight for the downfall. Comment 3. Ooh, I had not considered this angle. How interesting. Another poster said they thought Amy might be so insistent that she be left out of everything because the in-laws will cut her off. And I still think that's a strong possibility, but even more so if the kids aren't actually Luke's. Comment 4. Sweet life. Amy has bought herself a house with these people's help and receives regular financial support every month. She has hooked a sick man, who struggles to leave the house, according to one of OP's comments, and made him her puppet. Even if Luke suspects something, he can't confront Amy, because if he does, Amy could spill everything. She's been in control of the narrative until now, and suddenly the whole world she's built is going to be turned upside down. I think that's why she's freaking out. There's also being humiliated, yes, but she can always leave the city she lives in. Hell, even the country. But as long as the children are the grandchildren of this rich family. But if they're not, she's fucked. Comment 5. What DNA test did the kids use? That was super fast. Amy sounds like she has mental problems. No accountability for her actions. Zero remorse. No empathy. She thinks she can't do any wrong. Sue her for the laptop and press charges for battery or assault. OOP. Literally just one of the over-the-counter paternity tests you can buy at a drugstore. If it gets to the point of having tests done in court, those are likely to be more reliable. Oh, you read my mind. Kind stranger, that's exactly what I want to do. Laptop is likely to just be a small claims court, but it's another charge on the pile. Am I the asshole for hating my older daughter for throwing a forbidden party that led to my younger daughter was assaulted by 4 men? First of all, I am a widow with 3 children, but in this essay I will be more focused on Leah, 14, and Maya, 18. 4 guys back in December sexually assaulted Leah. Maya organized a party when I was working the night shift, and 4 of the lads that were there attacked Leah. Said the least, it has been terrible. Leah quit cheering and has lost all of her energy. She also chose to skip her first year by just finishing her classes online. She only wears my late husband's hoodies all day and sleeps in my room now, with me. As a mother, I feel so powerless as I have no idea how I could support her. Many facts came out about Maya's involvement in this over the research. She did not set up her little sister, but I believe she mistreated her greatly. All of this might have been avoided if she only followed my guidelines. I never approved of a party. Before you people argue, well, you're her mother, it's not her job to watch your kid. The issue is, it was her job. She left Leah under supervision. To look after her sister while I work evenings, I pay her really nicely. We had reached an arrangement years ago. Leah is not in any sense special needs. Maya just asked that she make sure her sister finishes her schoolwork and gets to bed at a respectable time. Maya herself invited the guys that attacked Leah. She knew personally that they belonged to gangs and that she had no concern. Rather, what I discovered in this research is Leah was not interested when she sought to be with one of these boys. Trying to entice Leah to kiss him, This lad was pestering her all night. Leah got enough and headed to her room. That same boy and his buddies went up to my daughter's room and sexually assaulted her after Maya left the house to visit McDonald's. The worst aspect of this is that partygoers assumed a couple was fighting upstairs when she started screaming and did nothing. Not knowing what transpired till the party ended the next morning. For her, and most likely the worst experience as a parent, having her do a rape kit traumatizing her. She tested positive for a treatable STD several weeks later as well. Ever since, my baby has been somewhat broken. Leah finds it quite difficult right now, even if they did acquire those males, and all four entered a guilty plea since they had evidence on their phones. Maya has been regretful, on the other side, and Leah has no resentment toward her and does not hold her responsible. She still adores her sister. I'm not sure why though. I've been really trying to forgive Maya, but I can't. I am so furious at her. I can't even look at her right now without wishing to snap. Her prom falls next weekend. I really couldn't give a damn less. She approaches me to have talks, but I find it difficult to express any enthusiasm in them. I love my kid. I do not hate her right now. Only I have a deep detest for her. I have been reading self-help books in search of appropriate ways to handle this. I feel as though in life I cannot be honest with anyone about this. As a mother, I suppose this may be a call for help. Edit. I value all of your comments. Maya still watches Leah, which is the most often asked question I'm seeing. Hell no is the response here. I no longer trust her. It may take years to recover. Right now I'm on a break. Leah is not in treatment either right now. She told me she wouldn't be ready for it. She might be amenable to it once the sentence is over. Maya is in therapy as well, but she misses many of the visits. I'm in therapy as well, and it has helped me not want to snap at Maya and stay cool under pressure. Sending Maya to my parents' house for a little while to gain some separation from her is the one piece of advice I am most strongly contemplating though. Sorry, fast second edit. To my understanding, Maya isn't in a gang, for the people wondering about that. Her most I have seen is smoking some cannabis and vaping. I'm also leaning toward Maya really being plain negligent that night, since I also don't want to believe Maya would ever set her sister to be brutally attacked. Furthermore, I believe it would have surfaced in the research if Leah had purposefully set up herself. The other three were mature men. The lad Maya was trying to arrange Leah for was 17 at the time. He's 18 today. Update: Maya's arrest the evening Leah attacked was rather straightforward. Her charges were 2 misdemeanors and felony child endangerment. She paid a $2,000 fine, 60 hours of community service, and 3 years of probation. The court was rather friendly to her. I grabbed her car as well. But following this update, I might have ought to have punished her more severely. Turning now back to the update, TLDR: at the bottom, Thursday afternoon Maya and I got into a fight. Leah came to me virtually agitated and on the edge of tears after 5 people messaged her that day offering sympathies for her attack. Leah has been quite clear. She wants nobody she knows to know she was attacked. After more research, it comes out Maya told a group chat of 27 individuals Leah was the victim. Leah told me she feels ashamed and she can never return to school next year. I naturally then went to confront Maya about it. I was overreacting, she insisted, and Leah was acting dramatically. She did not see the problem when I tried to use reason to explain how she mistreated her sister. She interrupted mid-lecture and exclaimed, "Jesus Christ, Mom, you need to let her deal with this instead of always leaping to her defense. Leah is not unique among women everywhere who experience rape. At least they don't define their personality like she does entirely. She's fine as well." Last night, I actually listened in on her on the phone chatting to a lad. It suddenly clicked for me at that instant when I saw her mask slip and she was not really regretful at all. I answered, "Pack your," saying she would be living with my parents until I let her back. She did exactly that. However, Maya sent a text to meet her at her therapist session later that day the next morning. Looking back, I wish I had never gone, since her therapist only saw her point of view during most of the visit. Maya opened up at the beginning of the appointment, apologizing and outlining her reasoning for telling her pals. She was venting, hence she didn't consider it as a major issue since Leah seems good these days and the public case that was in the news is public. Leah lists as a Jane Doe and has no name, but I digress. We then descended into the smallest details of everything. Maya told me in front of the therapist that she feels emotionally abandoned by me and that I never seemed to care about her trauma in the scenario, which for her meant having to stay in jail for a weekend and losing one of Leah's literal rapist buddies. Though I wish I could be laughing, I am dead serious. We discussed that for 30 minutes first. Given their father is no longer with us, her therapist said I should strive more to be Maya's mother and guilt-tripped me for not being more emotionally present for her. Though I am a terrible parent, I do not want to be emotionally present for Maya if it means supporting her in gassing over the relationship of the person who destroyed her sister's life. Maya has been telling Leah that the therapist was on one, particularly because she continued referring to what occurred to Leah as an accident or stating Leah seems happier these days. Leah actually still scores fairly low on mental health assessments yet is rather physically high on antidepressants. Feel free to skip over the next paragraph if I simply had an outburst since I become quite graphic here and have a major trigger warning. I think it's kind of nasty that the two of you are ignoring Leah's trauma in all of this and keep referring to it as an accident, I told Maya and her therapist. Your sister was in the hospital suffering from something your friend did. You spent a weekend in jail. Ironically enough, if you ever listen to Leah, she has said that your friend was the most hostile toward her throughout the attack and was the source of most of her injuries, including strangling her. So for you both to sit here and criticize me for not caring that you lost your friend due to something horrible your friend did to your sister is just nasty. Right now, my main regret is helping you choose a lawyer. I ought to have let you figure it out for yourself and perish in that jail. At this time Maya began crying in the office, claiming it unfair that I held her responsible for Leah's fate. Leah kept hovering near to her at the party, so she told me the only thing she was attempting to do was get Leah out of her shell. Interjecting suddenly, the therapist asks Maya, how did Leah respond to you when you apologized? In such a protective way, Maya responds, apologize for what? I did not sexually harass her. When the therapist mentioned it, even she was startled, and at that moment I was startled and at that moment I had heard enough. I got to stand, raise my hands and go. This was Friday afternoon. I haven't seen Maya since then. Maya has been messaging and calling me, pleading to come home so she might apologize to Leah and me, but at this point I'm not sure. I never imagined I would be the parent who would have no contact with my kid, but I'm not sure whether I could live around her. She is not repentant about what happened. I cannot trust her. Part of me wants to try to make it work for Leah since she asked yesterday if she destroyed our family, and it crushed my heart. Leah adores and looks up to Maya. I doubt she can understand at this point that Maya also failed her. I simply find myself caught. Tell me if I'm wrong for not grasping Maya though. I apologize for the not very cheerful update. I should thus say what happened that morning. By now I go home from work at 8:30 a.m., and my house was wrecked and several of Maya's buddies were still there. Of course, I argued with Maya a little regarding party planning. When I checked on Leah later, she was not in her room but her linens were bloody. Maybe it was the time of the month and she was sleeping or washing in my bed. But as I looked about my room, she was nowhere. When I started phoning Leah, her phone did ring. I heard it emanate from my closet. It's a walk-in, and I observed her cocoon-like blanket-covered state. She wasn't awake when I shook her to get her going. When I tried to untuck her, I discovered abrasions around her neck and bleeding on her scalp. I began yelling for someone to dial 911. Leah started crying when she started to sort of wake up in the ambulance. Maya's friend raped her, and she first told me she couldn't get up since she was in so much pain. I honestly didn't care about Maya at that time when the cops and ambulance arrived. I advised her to be truthful with the cops and she ought to be okay. I knew nothing as I know today. They then drove her to the station where the cops questioned her. Leah's medical report revealed what had transpired, hence they chose to accuse her with child endangerment. When they told Maya what happened to Leah, I did not observe her response. I considered it to be a lovely moment nevertheless when she hugged Leah once she was released from jail. From that period, the only red flag that jumps out to me is Maya's partial lack of cooperation about the distribution of the names. She claims she forgot. Fortunately, DNA from Leah and the crime scene, all four of Leah's rapists were already in the system for earlier offenses, one even on probation, so they were readily found. Following that was a domino effect. My son is my oldest. He married a month before things fell apart, and I wanted him to savor the honeymoon period with his wife, so I didn't want to draw him in too much about Maya. His wife is quite helpful, and she takes Leah all the time for sleepovers, or just to get her out of the house. Although I know I'm not alone in dealing with this, my daughter F14 has been quite understandably depressed. In 4 years, at her early age, she experienced 2 horrific events. She lost her dad 4 years ago and suffered sexual assault back in December. I recall feeling as though the world was against me when I was 14, with both of my parents on my side and having never experienced an assault. I find it incomprehensible what she is going through right now. I asked her if she was okay when I heard her sobbing in the bathroom this morning. She said promptly she was okay. It just makes me feel so powerless as her mother as I am unable to assist her or alleviate any of her suffering. Since both of my parents are still living and I have never been sexually molested, I cannot even completely identify with her. Since I cannot advise her and assist her with the current circumstances, I feel like I'm a bad mother. As a mother, I believe I should know everything. Unfortunately, I do not. I feel like 99.9% of the time I'm not sure what I'm talking about, hence every time I try to comfort her she most likely wonders, what is this woman talking about? Please leave some useful advice if any other mothers can relate. 3 children of mine are M24, F18, and F14. 4 years ago, COVID claimed the late husband quite unexpectedly. He lacked a will, but our life insurance policy paid a $360,000 death benefit. As his wife, I paid the whole cost. I chose to split the money 4 ways. I would get $120,000 and each of my 3 children would get $80,000. Since my kids were minors at the time, I promised them they could access their whole amount when they reached 18. Still, I would let them utilize some of their portion if they ever wanted to do something expensive. I looked after most of their requirements. I handed my son his portion immediately away as he was over 18. This was a verbal commitment, and I meant to follow through exactly. But recently, my middle daughter, let's call her M, was jailed in December for child endangerment after brutally mistreating her little sister, which resulted in something terrible happening under her care. She left roughly $65,000 after deducting some of her $80,000 for attorney and court fees. Fast forward to now, and my youngest kid is still somewhat challenged. She is on a high dosage of antidepressants and shows quite poor on mental health assessments during her visits. She usually jokes that she would be sent to a psych facility if she told the doctors or us how she really feels. Maya is no longer living with us. She is staying with my parents for now as I felt her presence was causing more damage than benefit to her sister. She has been pleading with me, nevertheless, to have the money I promised once she graduated. I have not been eager to do so. Familiar with the circumstances, my sister thinks Maya doesn't deserve the money and I should use it to keep home longer with my younger son, who will be alone throughout the day once I get back to work. Given my youngest's poor mental health and school being closed, I'm quite concerned about her. Maya is headed to start college, and I know most of the money would go toward that. Still, I am quite furious with Maya for the suffering she brought about for her sister. Making this choice is proving difficult for me. So supposing I retained her inheritance. Edit. Although I wasn't expecting so many comments, I am reading over all of them. I am conflicted since I honestly have no idea what my spouse would say if he were here. Part of me wants to believe he would really say to give Maya the money so she could attend college since he valued education highly. Another side of me too, knows that he would be far more harsh than I am and maybe disown Leah completely if he had known the whole truth about what happened to her. I'm conflicted as it's difficult to project what he would have desired. Update 2. Leah, my 14-year-old daughter, has been battling the fallout from the horrific act she went through last December. For us this past week has been particularly challenging. Last Tuesday everything began when a sheriff and another officer paid us a visit. One of the persons in charge of what happened to Leah, the person who videotaped the incident, had uploaded the footage to a group and now it's floating on some dark websites. Recorded in Leah's room, the footage included recognizable artifacts indicating her school attendance. When I heard this I was crushed. The way Leah responded startled me. She exhibited little emotional expression or tears. She just shrugged and murmured, "I figured," then sat there silently. Although the officials informed us that it is unusual for offenders to come back in these kinds of circumstances, they felt obliged to let us know for safety concerns. Leah returned appearing as though nothing had occurred, almost too happy after they departed. She dodged the subject although I tried many times to discuss it. This conduct persisted all week until she abruptly said she wanted to read her victim impact statement herself in court instead of allowing the prosecutor to do it. She believed that, lacking a trial, only the charges against those accountable were known, not the whole truth of what she went through. Her comment is a thorough narrative of that terrible night, but she has not been able to read it to me in whole as every time she tries she starts to cry. I only witnessed her really expressing her emotions at that one moment. Leah seemed especially happy all week until Saturday night and noted sleeping early, about 8 p.m. until I got a call from one of Leah's best friend's mother. I gave it little thought. Leah's last message to her daughter, a note expressing love and requesting her to check on her, worried her. Leah had tried to overdose on Zizquil when I hurried to her room. Knowing she would recover as a nurse, it broke my heart to see her waking in the hospital. She shrieked, "Why couldn't you just let me die? Mom, I want to pass. Feeling their hands on me wears me out. I want it to stop now. Please allow me to pass away." To help her relax, they had to knock her out. Leah was then put under a 72-hour psychiatric hold and then moved to a mental health hospital surrounded by peers her age. Leah has been suffering, particularly with a male staff member, maybe a psychiatrist who she claims has been asking intrusive questions about her personal life, making her uncomfortable. The staff advised staying longer than the first hold. Leah seems distant and staff members told me she is not joining in group activities. They even suggested limiting her access to me, but I asked them to hold off on putting such policies into effect. Given Leah's seeming trouble adjusting, I'm not sure if the inpatient environment we have now is appropriate. Her cry for her life to end haunts me still. It is a concept I cannot get rid of. Leah's buddy sent further information Leah had concealed from me. There is a nasty story going around that Leah had voluntarily engaged in something dangerous, and the cops were only involved out of shame. Young people can be rather nasty. Regarding my second daughter, Maya, 18, I haven't chatted with her in 2 weeks. I recently found, though, why Leah feels obligated to her. I discovered unsuitable texts on Leah's phone 2 years ago between her and Maya's ex-boyfriend. Saying Leah was much prettier and that he loved her yet inexperienced, he showed affection for her and even likened her to Maya. Maya was enraged and broke off with me when I told her, but she thought Leah had betrayed her by seeing her boyfriend. Even though Leah was just 12 at the time and her boyfriend was 17. Maya avoided Leah for 3 months following, and even with Leah's apologies, Maya still harbors resentment. Leah feels guilty about hurting their friendship with this episode. I'm sharing this to get it off my plate. I have kept these battles inside our family to guard my girls, but I am tired from always facing fresh difficulties and not sure how to heal them. I now find myself in the challenging role of determining Leah's mental readiness to testify at the sentencing for her abuser, though I wonder if she is in a stable enough position to manage a possibly traumatic occurrence, particularly since these guys genuinely have character witnesses. I worry she will blame me for this decision. Update 3. Additional details regarding the psychiatrist. Leah and I discussed what the psychiatrist said to make her uncomfortable more specifically. She informed me they made her sit down one-on-one to debrief why she was there and what was triggering these ideas when I left. She told him about the attack and opened up to him. But he wanted to know whether this was her sole sexual encounter. Leah answered yes, but he kept challenging her as if he didn't believe her, asking things like, "You can tell me if it wasn't your only experience. I am not going to inform your mother." Leah had to remind him again several times that it was her sole experience. He next inquired about her sexuality and whether she still found guys appealing. Leah claims she does not now give relationships any thought. She said she felt uneasy about him probing her sex life so much when they were alone in a room with the door closed. Although the psychiatrist might have been performing his duties, I would not accuse him of being improper. Rather, I believe he ought to have had a female staff member there or probe such issues. Before they met, he ought to have seen her chart. Update 4, back here with a much-awaited update. This runs long. TLDR at the bottom. Though much has happened, I will begin with something encouraging. Leah began treatment following her sentence, and she has been sharing good things about it. She said it was relieving not having to discuss the assault straightforwardly with her therapist. Her therapist recommended some EMDR sessions as well. Her first one is set for next week. Her general doctor advised she start birth control and cleared her to begin cheering once more should she so wish. I'm not sure about it as I know how much it can affect mental health and I want not to undo any advancement. We also moved into our new rental, and I let Leah pick a kitten, her baby. Leah always carries the cat with her, so I hardly see it since we bought it. To aid Leah in her recovery process, we had to toss most of her old furnishings. She used to like the things I used to, but now she wants the minimum color. I was attempting to show her the Pinterest room of her dreams. It is still being worked on. She currently boasts a boyfriend as well. Out on the 4th, he invited her. He is age appropriate, and I have known the child since I grew up with his dad, so I know he comes from a decent home. Leah appears like she could be developing codependency on him, which worries me the only thing. He is on FaceTime with us if he is not at our house. She wants him to tag along every time we go out. This has been happening since he asked her out formally. As Maya moved out, I would say it's been like this. Yet I'm not very concerned as I believe it's only like this now since it's summer and a fresh relationship. She seemed at first to be happy for the occasion. My last post drew a lot of critical comments as I wasn't informing my kid all the specifics or moving quickly enough. Though I almost wanted not to share this, I want to start by noting that I know my children and they know me. Timing is something I respect personally. I wanted to be sure I had facts, not presumptions, before I spoke with my other children. I knew in my heart that I tried my best to make my daughter answerable for her acts. I wanted to arrange a meeting with the detective who questioned Maya to tell him everything. The detective informed me he investigated Maya but lacked sufficient proof when we met. It wasn't enough to accuse her, even with all I told him. So he could only accuse her of child endangerment for leaving a juvenile she was supposed to be supervising in a house with a documented sex offender. He soothed me though, and confirmed what I had thought. He also informed me Leah reportedly spent almost 2 hours being assaulted twice by 2 of the suspects. Maya was arrested as she never went upstairs to see Leah and showed no sympathy during questioning. He also mentioned that he has looked into several similar cases, but this case troubled him since so many onlookers realized something sinister may be occurring but did not act. He told me to bear that in mind. Everyone failed Leah, not only Maya. Before the sentencing, I visited with my son and his wife. More dissatisfied than offended was his attitude. Though he knew something was amiss, he assumed Maya wouldn't act purposefully. My son and daughter-in-law told me they always believed Leah made Maya jealous or threatened. When Leah removed her braces, my son observed that she started to grow into her appearance, drawing greater interest from Maya's friends. Leah was the nice sibling amongst the two. According to my daughter-in-law, she personally saw this during the bridesmaid dress fitting. Maya attacked Leah instead of complimenting her. Maya responded, "I know, that's why I have to humble her." When my daughter-in-law informed Leah that Leah would unlock so much potential once she saw her beauty and ignored her bullies. Though she considered it odd at the time, my daughter-in-law didn't give it much attention until recently. Maya blocked them as soon as I tossed her out too, and today they know why. The sentence was not as harsh as I'd anticipated. Leah admitted she first found it to be dull. Of course, the mothers and fathers of the offenders were the character witnesses. One mother reported that it was a terrible night and that we should stop aggravating additional damage. One dad claimed his kid had been mistreated at Leah's age and that Leah had to have set off something inside him. Leah found nothing impressive about this. She said she ignored them, but I sensed it bothered her. I was so very proud of Leah when she chose to create a video and read her victim impact statement. Leah didn't look at all 4 of the offenders even though they all said apologies to her before the court. She heard them and thought only one was really remorseful. The rest responded robotically. 2 of the offenders were sentenced to 10 years, however they might be released 6 years early. Because of his past offenses, the person who filmed it received 12 years. The prosecutor warned me he might be in there for 20+ years due to a different charge. Leah's friend Maya, who she most worries about, received 14 years. The judge noted that he should complete the whole term and not be paroled as he had past difficulties for something similar. Leah wanted them all to be 14 years, but she was good with their sentences. Should they leave early or should there be parole hearings, she will be informed. My son said Maya was present but she stayed far back and departed right away when the court adjourned. Leah was particularly disturbed by some of the families of the offenders trying to personally apologize to her and chat with her. Apart from that, she managed it really nicely. We started debriefing everything while we were driving back home, and I tried to explain the next steps. Leah informed me it was strange that one of the offenders called Maya friend when we arrived home as Maya would not be friends with someone like that. She stated this and my face went white. I realized it was time to tell her. I said, "I had been intending to tell you this. I'm not happy with your sister for several different reasons." Leah was still perplexed, so I clarified that Maya was arrested for leaving the house, not for throwing the party. Leah simply said, "Oh okay, not giving a damn about that." Then I answered, "He wasn't lying in front of the courts. Maya went behind your back that evening to attempt to set you 2 up. Maya was friends with your sister." I then witnessed the flash of insight. Leah first assumed I was lying, but as I continued to speak, it was as though she watched someone's heart break before her eyes. She interrupted me off and remarked, "I don't believe you. Maya would never hang around with someone that terrible. She might not have been best friends with him, but she did have some kind of relationship with him," I said. "Mom, if that's true, that's really bad," Leah said. "None knows how nasty he was to me all day. I had to sit in the courtroom listening to people claim he was a wonderful person although it is untrue. Why does nobody agree with that?" I started apologizing to her at this time, and she grabbed her phone to call Maya. Maya responded with a really happy, "Hello," and Leah went right to the point asking whether Maya had ever been friends with her offender. Maya admitted she was friends with him before anything happened, even though I really believed she would lie. Leah then inquired as to whether she was attempting to get her to date him. And Maya answered honestly and positively. Leah hung off on her before Maya could clarify herself. Leah began shaking rather severely while she was tapping on her phone, and I knew she was blocking Maya on everything. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes once she was done and asked, "Mom, why does she hate me so much? Whatever I did to her, she still hates me. I have been trying to be her buddy. Why?" Over the course of the day we shed tears together. To be honest, Leah told me the next day she had finished with Maya and wanted nothing to do with her for some time. She stated she felt more enraged than depressed after sleeping on it. She opened out to me and that she wrecked her senior year, hence Maya made her feel ashamed. Leah blamed herself for what happened by not being more cautious and not locking the door. Yet, to now discover that she did lock the door and that Maya had far more control of the circumstances than she led Leah to believe makes her very unhappy. Leah then informed me Maya promised she was quitting, but she had a drug issue with Adderall and medications she had agreed to keep secret. When I asked Leah when her drug addiction first started, she stated she was unaware. Nonetheless, she found her pilfering her concerta in April 2023. Maya then came clean on her drug problem. Leah also thinks Maya's dealer was among her attackers since he used to visit the house late at night while I was working. Leah suffers greatly since Maya traded her for more drugs and never quit as she had promised. Leah further related that her assailant claimed during the attack that if she refused to participate, they would harm Maya, which would make her feel worse since she knows Maya wouldn't do the same for her. Although it was a few weeks ago, that was the last time we truly discussed Maya. I know she is suffering greatly. I went crazy and let her get a cat for this reason. Maya has tried to get in touch with Leah many times utilizing text-free numbers even though she is not sure of our new address. Leah exhibits no curiosity at all. Maya has been taken in by my mother-in-law, with whom I have never gotten along, paying for her education and purchasing her a new automobile just to spite me. She is no longer with my parents. She shared it on Facebook, but I wish I were making this up. The dysfunctional aspect is that although my mother-in-law is aware of what happened to Leah and all Maya accomplished, she simply doesn't care. Using their dad as leverage, she called Leah to guilt trip her, saying, "Your dad would hate to see you fight and hold a grudge against your sister over a mistake." Maya believes Maya is equally a victim as Leah. I stopped talking to her at that point and advised Leah not to answer her going forward. Since my mother-in-law wants to discredit my parenting and harm her other granddaughter by funding Maya's life, I am quite near suing Leah civilly on her behalf. Though I'm so annoyed with the situation, my therapist believes that will not help Leah or me heal. I'm sorry. I'm not doing well and there isn't another ending except that I lost 3 individuals in 4 years. I am quite hopeless. Both of my girls and the love of my life vanished from me. I will never be the same. I still grieve the loss of my small daughter. I also blame myself for not seeing my other daughter in time as I think she is a profoundly defective, dangerous person. I worry about everyone she encounters in her adult years. My wife wanted half of everything I owned after sleeping with her ex, so I vanished and rebuilt my life in secret only to find true love. Though I was wrong, I had thought the day could not possibly go worse. To top it off, my boss, the company president, called me into his office to chastise me over a mistake made by someone else. The whole week at work had been terrible. When I got home I found that my sister-in-law's car was blocking my driveway, so I couldn't park close to my house. I had to park 3 doors down as the teenage son of a neighbor and his buddies had parked automobiles all over the street. Coming inside the house, I wondered why I bothered. From the day we met, my relationship with Susan, my wife's sister, had always been tense. Though I couldn't understand why, she seemed to despise me right away. Moreover, despite my continuous attempts, we hadn't been intimate in about a month, thus I had little expectation for a special evening with my wife Janice. When I got to my driveway, I saw an empty garbage can by the curb and hauled it around the side of the house via the side gate to position near the back door. When I walked into the kitchen, my wife and her sister were chatting in the living room and I heard music. Pulling a beer from the refrigerator, I tasted it and turned to face the living room. But a sentence I overheard at the door stopped me cold. Not from my sister-in-law but from my darling wife. "God, he ******ed me 3 times today." My wife admitted, "Ever since Brandon came back last month, I just can't get enough of him." Brandon was my wife's ex-boyfriend, who had left her and gone away. Interested, the sister of my wife inquired, "So what are you going to do now?" Janice said, "I'll find a lawyer and file for divorce. Brandon wants me to move in with him. I'll get half of everything since this is a communal property state." More than enough had I heard. I went to the rear door numbly, then turned around to find my car. I opened the door and dropped into the driver's seat, now understanding the reason I had been denied any closeness. My wife wanted half of everything now since she was sharing it with someone else. The worst aspect was that she most certainly would get it from the state. Janice and I had tied the knot 3 years ago. She had left her employment immediately following our vows and never raised a finger at home. 3 times a week for house cleaning and laundry, I paid a maid. On those days, she would make dinner. She ordered takeout or I cooked the remainder of the time. Though love wore blinders on me, I know what you could be thinking. At least until a month ago she kept me pleased by giving decent sex. When my mother died when I was 13, my father and I suffered a terrible loss. We were really close and Dad did his best to raise me appropriately. Losing him to a drunk driver when I was 23 was a major blow, happening just 1 year before I saw Janice. Taking almost $2.5 million from Dad, I carefully managed the money under the direction of a competent broker. I had several $100,000 in savings that I had never touched, let them flourish even in the current economy, even as Janice tried to spend every dollar I made. I had enough to live reasonably without squandering my fortune. Our love for Janice caused us to overlook a prenuptial agreement, a common error many make believing their marriage will endure a lifetime. This control allowed her to perhaps take almost $1.5 million from me, all for the benefit of spreading her legs. The state looked all too ready to back this approved kind of exploitation. She had indicated she wasn't quite ready to serve me, so I realized I had some time to act and proposed contacting a lawyer. Developing a strategy, I watched the rear-view mirror in my car until I saw my sister-in-law's automobile pull out and head away. Starting the car, I turned around and headed back to my driveway. Janice vanished from sight when she first arrived at the house, so I went to get another beer in the kitchen. Popping the cap and sipping slowly, I considered where to go from here. Janice said, "Oh, there you are, honey," walking into the kitchen. "I didn't hear you arrive." "Hello, darling, I arrived right now." "Been a hard day," I said with a kind smile, resolved to perform as convincingly as she had. "I didn't have time to order anything for dinner," she remarked, slightly pouting. Though I wanted to add, "That's because you spent your day with your lover, discussing all the details with your sister." What I said was, "That's okay, sweetheart. I'll just reheat some yesterday night's leftovers." She declared she was going to go up and relax in a hot bath, smiled sweetly, and kissed my cheek. Grinning and nodding, I thought, yeah, gotta wash all that away, . She went and I ate a chilly plate of fried rice while downing 2 more beers. I threw the empty container, then channel surfed back to the den and sank into the chair. At last I came across an old movie. About half an hour later, Janice came back and sat on the couch till the movie stopped. Rising, she claimed to be exhausted and headed for bed. Yeah, worn out from being disloyal. I said I would join her later and watch the news. I hadn't actually seen the film. My thoughts were on strategizing my next action. Knowing I had little till Monday, I made it through the following few days working in the yard on Saturday and golfing on Sunday with friends. I handled my inherited holdings over Monday's call to my broker, and got everything sold. Being in top management let me quickly cash in my $401K, thus avoiding penalties. By Thursday I was ready to act. I told my apparently loving wife of an emergency and said that I would be heading out for a week on corporate business. All I needed was 2 suitcases packed. I had kept all that meant to me when we moved into this house. Nothing else I wanted fit her taste, so there was nothing else I wanted. She chose the furniture, hence honestly I couldn't give a damn about it. The silver lining in this was that we were renting the house, hence I had no financial commitment connected with it. We were looking for the perfect house to buy after just selling my unit. When I say right, I mean right as judged by her criteria. None of the homes we looked at seemed to fit her standards. I carried my bags out the door Friday morning and gave one more kiss on the cheek to my wife, loaded them into my Lexus, and I left without looking back once. My first stop was at the house of an old friend I trusted entirely. When I suggested a trading title for his repaired 4-wheel drive car, he was shocked. Having told him about my circumstances, an hour later I was traveling west. I questioned whether anyone would link me to this car, and Jake assured me the car I traded him for would be kept under cover in the garage for some time. I paid with cash for the next 4 days for everything. To try to leave no paper trace, I had canceled all of our credit cards. Thanks to my broker, most of my money was securely buried in an offshore account. I set up with him a mechanism to handle fund transfers as needed. There was enough cash stashed in the SUV to last for some time. The toughest were the evenings spent in motels. I had been too preoccupied last week implementing my strategy to consider what had personally happened to me. I had adored Janice. Had I not, I would not have married her. Though I experimented in my imagination through several what-if scenarios, I came to the conclusion that there wasn't much I could have done differently. I doubted I could have kept them apart even if I knew her former boyfriend had returned. Arriving at 2 conclusions, I realized it was my own fault for being naive enough to marry her, and she most likely never really loved me. On the 7th day away from home, I was seated at a tiny town Montana mom and pop cafe. By now my purportedly loving wife must have realized that our bank account was empty and that all of her credit cards were canceled. I wondered what she was up to. An older couple seated at the adjacent table caught my attention and broke off my thoughts with their subdued talk. Looking to be in his late 50s, the man was sharing with his red-haired wife his need for an additional worker on their farm. Sadly, they could not afford to pay someone until their present calves were ready for sale. Finding someone prepared to labor for what they could pay proved difficult even then. As I finished my last mouthful of food, I got up and went over to their table to apologize for listening in but also offer to help them. The elder man examined me closely, assessing me. "I don't understand how you could accomplish it. You know I can't pay you anything if you overheard what we were discussing. What if I merely need somewhere to live in return for my work?" I proposed. His eyes contracted. "Colleen, excuse us for a moment while I speak to this young man outside," he told his spouse. Rising, he watched for me to trail him. He turned to face me once in the parking lot, where our chat would stay private. I judged him to be roughly my height, 6 feet, with broad shoulders and no fat at all. His face revealed the rough lines of years spent laboring outside, and his once black hair was mostly gray. "Who the hell are you? Are you part of the Wilson Ranch?" he inquired, a little wary. Defensively raising my hands I said, "Hold on there, mister. About any Wilson, I know nothing. I arrived here this morning. 4 days ago I was living in Texas. Perhaps we could help one another out." He said, "Why would you want to assist us out if what you claim is true? I'm not able to pay you. What is it for you? We don't need such trouble if you're on the run from the law." Saying, "I'm probably on the run, as you put it, but not like you may think." I then told them about my unfaithful wife wanting to take me to the cleaners and how I could use a place to stay for a little. "Nobody have I robbed or killed. I'm just attempting to retain what is rightly mine. Should you have a place I could stay, I will work for you in return. I'll pay my own way. If you don't believe I'm of assistance, let me know. I'll be on my way with no resentment." Examining my face, he continued, "I think I would be a fool not to at least give you a shot if what you're telling me is the truth. I must tell you straightforwardly though, the Wilsons are trying to have me sell my land to them. Though I wouldn't write it past them, they haven't done anything dishonest yet. You might be chewing off more than you can handle." I told him I was ready to run the risk. He then asked about my experience ranching, and I told him straightforwardly, I was not a cowboy. I had spent a couple summers on my uncle's Texas property. He reached out and we shook in unison on our agreement. I introduced myself and he advised me to phone Bill, his first name. Colleen was waiting in the diner when we returned. He yelled out to her, "Colleen, this is Carson. Should he be able, he will be working for us." She got up and reached out her hand. I shook it and she said kindly, "It's very nice to meet you, Carson." Her voice was clear, maybe with a trace of Irish accent. She was trim and fit, just as her husband was. "It's good to meet you too, ma'am," I added. She answered, "You just call me Colleen, the last name is Buckman. Not really needed for formality in this region of the nation." This lovely woman appealed to me right away. Bill urged us to return to the ranch. He drove up to a general store before leaving town, and we both got out of our cars. "I might want to pick up some clothes fit for ranch work," he remarked. He was greeted warmly by the proprietor as he entered the store, clearly a frequent visitor. For the time being, a coat and some Western-style riding boots would have been plenty. From the general store, the main gate was about 20 minutes drive away, arched under the name Rocking Bee Ranch. Bill called his brand Rocking Bee. Another mile of a private road brought one to the main house on top of a hill. Their 2-story house looked recently painted and well kept. Behind it started to show a barn and a number of outhouses. The partially laden sacks of food in their pickup suggested their weekly supply excursion into town. I trailed the Buckmans into the kitchen, tugged behind them and packed things into my arms. 2 visits saw the vehicle emptied. Bill told me to drive out back and showed me a little hut for my lodging. I saw him standing in front of the cabin as I pulled around. He pointed to the cabin when I came out, saying Sam used a similar one a few yards away and mentioning Sam was out making the rounds. I will meet him later. He waited while I settled into the cabin after emptying my baggage. Its one big room featured a bed along one wall, a table with 2 seats, a potbelly wood burner in one corner, and a bathroom with a single stone shower. Though it wasn't opulent, it was tidy and a good place to stay for now. At least would let me hopefully avoid running across Janice. He was sitting in his pickup when I came outside and instructed me to climb in. With a couple of 100 acres put aside for winter fodder, he showed me around the roughly 6,000-acre property. Accessible solely on horseback, the mountainous, forest-covered back part of the ranch produced mountains with a creek running across the land. Bill said he used to have 3 full-time hands, but Sam was the only one left through trying circumstances. Sam had been working on the ranch almost 30 years ago. They recruited extra personnel during roundups choosing cattle to bring to market. Bill dropped me up at the modest cabin and said, "By the way, I saw you have a laptop. You can access the internet wirelessly from my satellite connection to a router. Supper is in the main house. We usually eat about 6:30. He left in tow. I was settled in less than 30 minutes, allowing time to turn on my computer. I made a Wi-Fi connection as he had advised and rapidly checked for emails. Jake sent one note that Janice had reported me missing to the police and they were looking at my absence. It provoked some thought for me. The only person I had really mentioned leaving was Jake, and even he was unsure of my destination. Though I had sent my resignation to my previous company, I hadn't personally told them about my leaving. I knocked on the main home door just before 6:30. Bill asked me to come in, and as I entered, Colleen was cooking while Bill stood to the side chatting to a man I thought to be Sam. Pointing me over, Bill said, "Sam, here is Carson, the new hand I mentioned. For today at least. After a day's work, we'll see how he feels about it tomorrow," Bill replied, flashing a broad smile. "Carson, meet Sam," said. Sam extended his hand and grinned warmly at me. At least 6 3/8, he was a large man. Like Bill, he seemed to have worked hard all of his life and matched in age. He was African American, one obvious fact. Sensing the force in his hand, I shook it. "Well, young man, let us hope this here appeals to you. I could benefit from your support," he replied. He thought of me as youthful since at 28 I was roughly half his age. I said, "I plan to give it my best shot." Colleen contacted us just then to get us seated for dinner. Bill and his wife sat at opposite ends of the table, leaving Sam and me to sit between them across from each other. On the table were a big dish of mashed potatoes, a huge platter of pork chops, another with fresh green beans, and a plate piled with definitely handcrafted biscuits. "We don't eat fancy here, Carson, but there's plenty and it's filling," Colleen stated. "It looks really good," I said. I asked Bill if he had lived here all his life as we ate. "Yep," he answered. "Starting this ranch, my grandfather handed it to my father. Now it belongs to Colleen and myself. Although, in younger years I wasn't so sure she would be involved with it. I had to fend off every man to acquire her." He turned to face his wife, and I could see how deeply he loved her. "Now Bill," she said, "you know you're the only man I ever had eyes for. I simply had to make sure you wanted me enough." Bill added, "My wife has been responsible for the 3 happiest days of my life: the day she agreed to marry me, the day she did marry me, and the day she gave birth to our daughter, Caitlin." Colleen must have seen my inquisitive expression and remarked, "Our daughter is away right now." I hadn't seen any indication of a daughter. She is at South Dakota State University completing her veterinary sciences PhD degree. She has only spent the holidays at home. We are eagerly waiting for her to return carrying her degree. "She's supposed to be home in a couple of months," Bill said. "Having a vet in the family will be great, and should help to reduce some of the costs." I tried to help clean the dishes after supper, but Colleen shooed me away saying it was her job. "Breakfast at 5:30, Bill said, "and work would start at 6 o'clock. I saw a copy of today's New York Times on the counter as Sam and I were leaving, perhaps picked up by Bill in town. He approved when I asked whether I might borrow the front page. I requested him to briefly step into my cabin once outside. Inside I pulled out my digital camera and taught him how to operate it. I had him snap a close-up of me displaying the newspaper's front page. Though he never asked, I could see he was fascinated. He did ask about an alarm clock. I told him I had one. Saying he would see me in the morning, he went. I downloaded the image to my computer and wrote an email including a note to the police in my former hometown. The message said I had left town of my own free choice and I was alive and healthy. Selecting a national newspaper over a local one left my whereabouts vague. I emailed Jake asking him to utilize one of the nearby coffee shops with free internet access. My work email was probably still operational, hence I gave my password so he could transmit the original email and picture to the police without leaving any traceable roads. Assuming the police wouldn't commit significant resources to hunt a fugitive husband, this manner I planned to avoid appearing on any FBI or national missing person databases. That night I fell asleep peacefully. I got up at 5 the next morning, showered, and got dressed in time to walk to the main house with Sam. Bill told Sam to get me going installing fence posts in the hillside part after lunch. He pointed out a horse and saddle I would require following Sam to the barn. Drawing on his experience on his uncle's property, he appeared happy with the way I saddled the huge brown horse. We then selected 2 mules and attached saddle packs using a post hole digger to load fence posts. Bill joined us in the barn carrying a saddle scabbard and a Winchester Model 94. He explained it was mostly for the odd occasion when we might have to call down a sick cow. Sam and I mounted up and set off following the creek up into the hills, each leading a mule. Sam and I developed a rapport and had talks while we rode. Trusting he wouldn't betray my confidence, I told the tale of how I landed up in Montana. He returned with his own stories. After graduating from high school, he had married immediately only to find his ex-wife sleeping with another man. Driven by a flash of wrath, he had almost killed the man, earning a 5-year prison term. Bill spent the last 30 years here, and upon his release he was the only one ready to give him an opportunity. Sam said great things about Bill and Colleen, thinking of them as the salt of the earth. Half an hour later we arrived at the fence delineating the property limits. Sam saw that just about every third one of the posts required replacing. Not all of them had rotted or were near to each other. He stayed with me to make sure I was doing it right as I swapped the first two. He advised working till about 4 o'clock so that I could make it to supper at 6 o'clock, have enough time to return, take care of the horse and mules. To make sure I wouldn't get lost, his parting words were to follow the stream back down. He turned around and left me by myself working. I moved along the line substituting fresh posts for old ones. I stopped at midday and pulled from my saddlebag the pork chop sandwiches Colleen had handed me in the morning. I ate my sandwiches then went back to work. The alert of my watch beeped at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I realized I had set all but a few of the posts the mules had carried up. Leading the mules, I followed the fence line back to locate the brook and started down. I came upon a natural pool with streams in and out just before leaving the woods. Stopped to take in the scenery. I knew it was the most peaceful and lovely place on the property. I managed to unsaddle the animals and feed them in time back at the barn. Sam came to bed down his horse as I was caring for the others. Before dinner, when we savored steaks, we hurried to change and clean up. That evening, tired, I participated little in the discussion and excused myself right after dinner to go to bed. I went fast to sleep and slept deeply. I hurt all over when I woke up. My arms, shoulders, and legs throbbed. My hands hurt from running the post hole digger. Even with my consistent exercise, a 2-hour gym session and a full day of fence post installation differs greatly. Bill and Sam laughed as I hobbled into the kitchen and groaned when I sat down. Colleen too couldn't really disguise her smile. Still, even with the pain, I was starving and ate my meal quickly. Ready for still another fencing day? As we stood from the table, Bill inquired. I moaned and answered, "Yes, sir," trying to project more hope than I felt. Bill laughed. "I suppose you could rest it today. You should ride the rounds with Sam." I nodded with gratitude. Cleaning the stalls and swapping the hay came first. We loaded up in the pickup after placing the horses and mules in the pasture and filling their feeder and started our ranch tour. Our main objective was to make sure no calves were split off from their mothers or cows were down. Sam seemed to have natural knowledge of the ranch. He could almost predict where the animals would be and approximated their count. 30 years later, it seemed to come easily to him. Sam halted the truck as we arrived at the far end of the ranch and looked about. He turned to look at something on one of the hills and handed me his binoculars, pointing to a certain area. A minute later I found 2 calves apparently alone. "Where are their mothers?" I asked. He waved toward 2 cows close to the tree line. "That is them across from each other. Their calves have to have walked into the forest, been disoriented and persisted on. We will have to pull them down." "Are we hiking up there?" I asked. Sam shot back. "Nah, it's too far. We'll go back and load a couple of horses." Sam called Bill, telling him of what we had observed and that we were on our way to fetch the horses. The pickups had 2-way radios. Bill saddled 2 horses and loaded them into a trailer when we got back to the stable. All we needed to do was stock up and head off. Sam guided us along the tree line below the calf location, and we unloaded the horses. Sam knew the area like the back of his hand, so riding up into the hills his 30 years on the ranch became clear once more. We eased down behind the calves half an hour later and started gently pushing them back down the hills. When we cleared the trees and the errant young discovered their mothers, I couldn't help but giggle. Running wailing to their mothers, they went straight to grab a teat to suckle. The bigger cows waited patiently so their young can eat. It seemed so different from my early years. Supper that evening was mashed potatoes, corn on the cob, and fried chicken. Driven now, I spoke more than I had the night before and grew to know Colleen. She was 5 years old when her parents came to the United States from Ireland. Fascinated by stories of the Old West, her father had brought the family to Montana and explained the trace of an Irish brogue in her speech. Much better the following day, I went back to repair the fence posts after breakfast. Sam loaded the mules for me, but this time I left on my own. Following the stream got me to where I needed to be. This day turned out to be less difficult than the first since I had some techniques to reduce the effort of the work. I published the last one just before 4 o'clock and returned to the barn. I worked some of the booths with extra time before tidying for supper. On my 4th day, I helped Sam do some building repairs. I set more fence posts the next day. 2 months passed quickly, and I now rode the property to see the livestock. I was in the most physical form of my life. Sam took Saturdays off, Bill took off Sundays, and Mondays were my days off. We set a calendar. I ran to town if necessary and used my day doing laundry. Everyone on the property had come somewhat dear to me. Sam was laid back and kind. We used to often sit and chat after dinner. We got along great, and I really respected Bill since he was honest and diligent. Though I could sense Colleen had some fire in her, she was quite lovely to Sam and me. She and Bill were a wonderful couple taken all together. Colleen and Bill were becoming really enthusiastic. Colleen told me during Friday breakfast that her daughter would be home in 1 week. That day it was my turn riding a horse throughout the forest, looking for cattle that might have strayed into the hills. About 4 o'clock, I headed to the creek, turned to follow it down, and arrived at the pool below the waterfall. I stopped, got off, removed my shirt and knelt down to the water to dip my bandana into the cool stream. I started clearing the dust and sweat from my neck and cheeks. A whinny from downstream drew my eye and I turned to find a horse and rider heading right. I first assumed it was Colleen, but I soon understood this was a younger rendition of her. With her identical crystal blue eyes and red hair like her mother, this stunning woman could only be Caitlin. Riding up, she halted several feet from me. She asked in a chilly voice, "Who are you and what are you doing on this property?" As I got up and faced her. Saying, "The name's Carson, and I work here." "I don't believe you," she said. My dad explained he couldn't afford to pay another hand. I was becoming a little annoyed at her hostile attitude even with her beauty. I said, "Yeah, I overheard that too. That's probably why I chuckle all the way to the bank each paycheck." She looked at me, whirled her horse around, and gave it a sidekick. I laughed to myself, pulled my shirt back on, remounted my horse and headed toward the barn. I later learned that Caitlin's parents had misinterpreted one another. She had arrived a few hours after I had gone out, much to their surprise. They assumed she was returning home the next week. She had spent the morning and early afternoon with her parents until she said she wanted to ride, something she liked to do but had not had time for at school. She hitched up then and rode to her preferred location, the pool and waterfall. I suppose after 2 months I was old news, and Bill and Colleen had omitted to mention me. I saw the rear of the redhead vanish inside as I made back off to the barn. I got off and started to walk my horse inside. Caitlin had been searching for her father when at last she came upon him in the barn. As she inquired, "Who is that man that was up at the waterfall?" I could plainly hear her strong voice. For a moment Bill considered and remarked, "That must have been Carson. He said he works here, but last time I was here you told me you couldn't afford to pay another hand," she remarked. "Well, he is right, he does work here," Bill said. "Regarding his pay, I doubt that is of relevance for your company." "Young woman, I still run this ranch." She choked. "But he said you pay him so much that he laughs all the way to the bank." I had wandered into the barn by then. She didn't notice me, she turned her back on me. Bill did. Grinning broadly, he replied, "Is that true, Carson? Should you believe you're overpaying, I can correct that." She whirled around, locking me in her look. "Well, I would hate to take advantage of you, Bill." I pulled my hat off with one hand and rubbed the back of my head with the other. "Just how much do you intend to lower my pay?" Bill and I started crying laughing at that. She simply kept glaring at both of us, not seeing the joke. "Sweetheart, just so you get that bee out of your bonnet, Carson gets to stay in the cabin next Sam's," Bill remarked. She followed with, "And what else?" "That, and he gets to eat your mother's fine cooking," Bill said. She persisted. "So you're claiming you aren't paying him? Why would he labor for no result?" "He has his reasons, it's not my place to tell you," Bill answered. Then I contributed. "Working to have a chance to taste your mother's cooking is worth a lot, and I don't think she would like to hear you say that it's nothing." She glowed one more at me and bolted from the barn. Shaking his head, Bill added, "She reminds me so much of her mother when she was young." I never imagined I would be carrying Colleen to dinner that evening. Caitlin followed us. She threw me another stinging glance when I walked into the kitchen, seated opposite Sam on the other side of the table. I held out until everyone had loaded their plates before talking. "Your mother tells me you have finished your doctorate in veterinary medicine," I added in a friendly way. Her one-word response, offered without looking up, was, "Yeah." I went on. "Sam says he's nearly 30 miles away and that there is only one other vet in the vicinity. I have no doubt that you will be quite helpful to the people living here." She looked up at my comment and I assumed her eyes softened a little. "Certainly, That would be Dr. Harrison. He is often needed in more than one location at once and has more business than he can manage. Then Colleen said, I agree with you, Carson. Our Caitlin will deliver a first-rate performance. Throughout the rest of the dinner, Caitlin spoke with her parents and Sam, who had been on the ranch since before she was born. She avoided direct contact with me and I often kept silent. This was her homecoming, and I knew Sam's parents wanted to know what had been happening in her life while she was overseas. I hurried away to turn in as soon as I finished eating. When I got back to my cabin, I looked through my email and found one from Jake. He claimed to have casually asked a friend of his on the police force whether they still regarded me as a missing person. Everything had been dropped, his friend stated, after they got the email including the photo I had provided them. Regarding Janice, Brandon had evidently thrown her as soon as he saw I'd vanished with all the money, and it seemed unlikely Janice would be able to get her hands on any of it soon. She was working as a waitress in a city apartment, obviously unable to afford the rent on the property we had been living in. She lacked the funds to get a lawyer to follow after me. She had evidently only married me for my money, and her boyfriend had only desired her for the same reason. My money. I considered it humorous. Though I now only did it every third or fourth day, I was still building fence posts. I had left the hills and was down where I could drive the pickup to where I worked. Loading the posts in the truck's rear rather than on the mules made sense. The morning Caitlin got home, I filled the pickup with posts and drove to where I had left off. I walked to the truck during my regular lunch break and discovered I had forgotten my meal. Colleen would make sure we had lunch if any of us were working far from the main home all day. I suppose I spaced out picking mine. Although I could have driven back to the house, I figured missing one supper would not kill me. Just setting a post about half an hour later, I was attaching the wire when I heard a car approaching. Looking back, I saw among the ranch vehicles one of them. The truck stopped exactly as I was finishing with that post. Turning around, I found Caitlin getting startled. Like the little sacks Colleen packed our lunches in, she carried a little bag. Shoving the sack toward me. Mama said you forgot your lunch, she said. I grabbed it from her out here. Thanks, Caitlin, I answered. That was rather courteous. As usual, I checked the sack and found 2 sandwiches. She shook her head no as I pulled one out for her. I offered the other. I rolled my shoulders and headed to eat from the truck's tailgate. She strolled over to where I was, roughly 5 feet to the side, and simply gazed at me. I ate with my eyes fixed in front of me. At last she questioned, "Why are you here?" Turning, I gazed at her and decided to play a little with her. You can't tell anybody. I stashed the money after robbing a bank. I'm hiding here till the heat is off so I can get the cash. Her eyes became wide initially, then she sent me a glare. She sighed, turned to go, saying, "You're a real clown." I waited to contact her until she reached her truck midway. She halted, then turned slowly around. I wed someone who only wanted the things I could offer her and never loved me. I got up here because I just wanted to temporarily escape what I knew. She fixed another glance at me, and I believe she determined this time I was speaking the truth. She nodded her head and went silent once again. I considered what her dad had said about her mother behaving like that at her age as she drove away. He said he had calmed her, but I thought the key was their love for one another. Less than 24 hours had passed since I first saw Caitlin, and I could not see any man taming that fiery redhead. That evening's dinner was essentially a replay of the evening before. Caitlin talked with Sam and her parents. She didn't know me, hence we had nothing in common and I didn't feel slighted. Actually, Bill went to answer a knock on the door while we were just completing dinner. He entered the kitchen, then followed by a man my age. Women would have called him tall, black and attractive. With great enthusiasm, Caitlin called his name, leaped from her seat and hugged the person. They were clearly gabbing away about how long it had been since they had seen each other, clearly knowing one another. A few minutes later the door knocked once more. Bill responded once more and came back accompanied by another man, this one fair-haired but also attractive. Caitlin also greeted him quite warmly. I remembered Bill's comments of having to battle off every male nearby to win his wife. At least in appearances, Caitlin was exactly the treasure her mother was. I left the meal excusing myself and went back to my cabin. Mentally, I hoped the 2 guys' luck was good. Though I did envy them, whoever won her affections would be a lucky man if Caitlin proved to be the woman her mother was. I grabbed the truck the following day and rode the property. Something didn't seem to match by the time I had done my rounds. Early enough, I returned to pick Sam and we had a whirl-around tour of the ranch. Though he agreed that something didn't feel right, it simply appeared like we were lacking a few herds. There were plenty of cows scattered around the ranch. We resolved we would ride the mountainous sections and saddle up the following day. Bill agreed to our scheme when we brought it up at dinner that evening. That night it rained, which would complicate track search. Bill took us to one end of the property after we loaded our horses into a trailer early the next morning. Sam continued another third higher. I rode perhaps 3/3 of the way up into the tree line. We then crossed the ranch across the hills, across the trees. Reaching the far side took up much of the day. There were 5 stray herds counted here. Bill greeted us as we emerged from the hills. We placed the horses into the trailer and proceeded back. We talked about the matter and agreed that our sole action may be increased vigilance. That evening at supper, Caitlin received another call from a suitor. Her mother murmured something about that, the third one she had that day. Word had leaked that she was returning home, and men were crawling out of the timber work looking for her. We kept a close check on the herd for 4 more days. Except for the suspected original loss, everything seemed to be in order. Caitlin's potential mates kept paying visits. She had been home for a week and had not spoken to me 2 words since the day she brought my lunch. On the 5th day following the apparent livestock disappearance, I told Bill I wanted to bike the property line across the hills. We had seen no proof the missing animals had crossed through the grazing regions, and we had already covered the fence lines there. Sam dropped me off to the west side of the property, where Bill's bordered Wilson property. I saw 3 new sets of horse tracks crossing from the Wilson side of the fence onto Bill's side around midway to the southwest corner. The odd thing was the fence wire was still up. After dismounting and looking at the fence posts, I discovered that 5 of the staples had been loosened and were hardly keeping the wire upright. Eliminate the staples, lower the wire, and you may cross across. Reverse the wire and staples, and it looked right. I went remounted following the tracks. Approaching the stream, I noticed 3 horses tethered to a tree somewhat above the waterfall. Still roughly 30 yards distant, I rapidly tied my horse to a tree and drew the gun from its sheath. When I arrived at the horses, I discovered boot prints headed downstream. I staggered to the brink of the waterfall, peered over, then gasped. Naked as the day she was born, Caitlin was in the pool. The image captivated me since she swam across the lake, her naked body obviously on show in the pure water. A movement in the trees to her right helped me to come back to reality. I looked fast around and noticed 2 additional men approaching the pond on the left and 1 guy to the right. I lifted my firearm and fired. On the right, the bullet landed close to the guy's feet. 1 more fast trigger pull and the dirt erupted near the left 2 guys. A blood-curdling scream from Caitlin reverberated over the woods. Rising so everyone can see me, I cried. On your bellies now. I won't be missing the following shot. Stay where you are, Caitlin. She simply saw me standing over her clutching a weapon and battled to hide her body. She hadn't noticed the 3 males. One of the men on the left gasped as if he were about to flee, but as I pressed the trigger once again the bark of the tree next to him burst. Persuaded, he dropped flat down. Looking where I had fired, Caitlin saw the 2 men shrieking once again. I began to count down. Before I could say 1, the other 2 dropped down too. I told them right away to place their hands behind their heads, and they complied. I asked Caitlin right away to leave and change. She tried to object, but I growled at her to just follow my directions, get ready and go. Clearly terrified, I could see her shivering from where I stood, but she followed my direction. She left the pool like Venus rising out of the sea. She emerged from the sea back away from me, but I couldn't look away from her. Her alabaster skin and the most precisely shaped butt I'd ever seen stayed with me always. She just put on her jeans and blouse, swung up upon her horse and kicked once to be across the woods. I told the men one by one to get up on their knees and then lie back down when she was away. I sighed with relief just when all 3 were before me. I judged it time for a bluff. What then ought I to do with you 3? I could just shoot you in the legs and see you die slowly. The 3 men started to ask me to spare them. Even if I spare you, I replied, Caitlin's father will guarantee justice when I tell him of your horrible plans regarding his daughter. Unless, of course, you have something like cattle rustling for your confession to the sheriff. Although it can result in jail, at least it gives you a chance at life. The tiniest among them cracked. Indeed, we did it. Wilson said breaking Buckman would guarantee Wilson his land. His friend quieted him to close, but he answered, I ain't dying for no damn cows. Knowing Caitlin would be back quickly and her father would surely investigate, I decided to purchase more time. As expected, 45 minutes later Bill and Sam galloped right front. They motioned me down, then rushed up to meet me at the top of the climb. What in the devil is happening? Bill wanted it. It seems some of Wilson's hands paid us a visit unwelcomely. I followed them here from the fence line. 3 were trying to sneak up on Caitlin while she was swimming. I pushed my rifle's barrel up against the smaller man's neck. I believe this one has something he wants to confess to you. Again prodded he whined, we did it. Although we grabbed some of your animals, Wilson drove us. Bill turned his cap back and grinned at Sam. You know, they hung cattle rustlers and horse thieves when my grandfather managed this property. Back then justice sometimes felt easier. Too bad these days we have to be polite. Bill and I decided to march the rustlers back down carrying rifles while Sam stood guard. Sam tethered their horses together and raised the rear, thereby trailing after them. When we arrived at the buildings, we guided the rustlers into the barn and arranged them in individual stalls with open doors that let us monitor without them seeing each other. Bill entered the house to summon the sheriff, Sam and I watching from behind. The sheriff raced the long drive in less than 30 minutes. Bill met him and briefed him on the developing events. He agreed when I suggested first bringing the smaller offender out so the sheriff could question her. I went right outside with my prisoner. First reluctant, the small rustler seemed to think about his quietness and started talking. Looking at Bill, the sheriff remarked, "It seems that our case here is simple trespassing. Though I could leave them in your hands, honestly it's a little waste of my time. Ignore me, I will let you manage things." The scared rustler opened suddenly and expanded his eyes. The sheriff called for assistance as he quickly pulled the truth. Not too long later, Wilson's large property was inundated with the sheriff's car convoy. The sheriff found approximately 100 stolen cattle bearing the Rocking Bee brand, even though the area the rustler pointed out was quite large. By day's end Wilson and his friends were behind bars. In among the chaos, it was well past 9 when we sat for dinner. Though seated at the table, Caitlin kept her eyes fixated on her dish. "What were you outside doing?" Having not had much opportunity to interact with her, Bill asked her directly. "I was swimming right now." She flashed me an accusing look, saying, "I didn't think anyone would spy on me." I interrupted. "First of all, Caitlin, I wasn't watching you. I followed their horse trails across to the stream. Second, think about what may have happened without me. Those three were probably not planning a picnic when they noticed you swimming shirtless." Colleen said, "Thanks goodness you showed Carson when you did." I shudder to consider what might have happened. Aware of an early start the next day, the discussion changed and we rapidly ate our dinner. Coming out of the kitchen toward my cabin, Caitlin shouted to me. Stopped and waited as she angrily asked, "So, did you enjoy the view today?" Anticipating thanks proved overly optimistic, so I said, "Let's just say I'd be dishonest if I claimed it wasn't breathtaking." She sniffed and turned on her heels, striding toward the house. I stood shaking my head, realizing there was something about me that regularly hooked her. Bill had to go into town formally charging Wilson the next day. Returning the pilfers of cattle to their proper area would take several days since the prosecutor had to first completely document the case. Sam and I worked through some of the barns renewing the paint all day. We had lunch in the kitchen, but Caitlin declined to join us, a choice that would have been perfectly acceptable. Bill came back early in the afternoon but waited until dinner to report the changes. "Wilson and his friends will be released on bond since this wasn't a capital case," he said. Although he expected no more conflict, he advised us to be alert. Looking at his daughter, he grinned cheekily and remarked, "If you're planning on another nude swim anytime soon, maybe you should take Carson along, for protection." Her cheeks was red and she staggered as she stood and hurried to her room. Bill and Sam burst out in laughter, and even Colleen found herself giggling. I laughed at their pace. We started our dinner when the laughs stopped. Bill kept his gentle mocking going. "I truly owe thanks to Carson. Wilson might have financially risked this property rather significantly. You are well worth every penny." We had yet another round of jokes. 3 days later Bill was informed he could have his livestock back. Riding with a sheriff's escort, we loaded 3 horses into a trailer and headed to Wilson's Flying Doll Ranch. Once we had the horses unloaded, Colleen came along to run the truck and trailer back. Starting to drive the cows back toward his ranch, Bill, Sam and I rode ahead and loosened a section of the fence line as we neared the Rocking Bee Ranch so the cattle could pass over. Content with the day's work, we tightened the fencing and rode back to the main house after making sure every cow was back where it belonged. Caitlin had filed for her veterinarian license during this period. She could only tend to the animals on her father's property for now, while the approval procedure usually took 45 days. I would find her all around the place and, naturally, at mealtimes. If I could catch her eye, despite her silent treatment, I would grin broadly and wriggle my eyebrows, always enough to make her flush. 2 weeks following the waterfall incident, we discovered ourselves in the barn at the same time. "Been enjoying any swims lately?" I asked. She walked up, inches apart, and glowed at me. "Why are you such a **** hole?" I shrugged, laughed and asked, "Why are you such a B**********?" Her right hand sought my face, but I moved quickly to seize her wrist before she could hit. Still undeterred, she attempted with her left and I caught that too. Pushing both hands behind her back, I pinned her and drove her body against mine. I dropped my face slowly near hers. She gazed at me but did not try to break away. "If you were mine, I'd put you over my knee and spank your butt," I remarked then. Pulling back, she said, "You wouldn't dare." I let off suddenly, and she dropped backward crashing on her butt. I just got rid of one woman who doesn't care about me. I'm not wasting my time on another. I wouldn't dare. She was the one who used to storm off first, but this time it was my turn. I walked out of the barn, leaving her on the ground. I saw her just before dinner. She avoided me predictably, but I couldn't interpret the look she gave me. Not that I ever claimed to know women anyhow. That proved true in my marriage to Janice. The next day I was in the barn looking over the stalls when Bill entered. Knowing Sunday was his day off, I reasoned he wanted to chat. I questioned whether Caitlin had told him about the incident from the previous day and whether he had come to urge me to leave. As he neared, I stopped working. "I heard you and Caitlin had a little showdown yesterday," he stated then. That addressed my concern about whether Caitlin had told her father, but I sensed a glitter in his eyes. "Sure, you might say that," I replied. "Most likely my fault." He went on. "Maybe, maybe not. Her problem, in my opinion, is her uncertainty of what to regard you. She considered you to be here for something first, then you turned into the hero saving the ranch and her. Why you aren't following after her like the other local young men is something she finds incomprehensible. Like her mother at her age, Caitlin is accustomed to having men encircling her little finger. She has had a couple of boyfriends, but none stayed. She hardly seemed to respect them. Simply said, 'I hope you don't let her chase you off. In my book, you are welcome here as long as you wish.' I answered, 'Thanks, Bill, that means a lot to me. I'll stop taunting Caitlin, hopefully allowing us to live and let live.' He left the barn and I started working again. I thought about Bill's comments throughout the rest of the day. Acting respectfully and having a discourse would be more successful than Caitlin's present method in helping her to understand me. Regarding her like the others, that simply wasn't in the cards. She skipped dinner that evening, a subject no one brought up, and I asked nothing. Even on my day off, I followed my schedule the next day, getting up at 5 as normal. Breakfast done. After Sam and Bill left for work, I got my washing. Bill had made significant investments in a big industrial washer and dryer, allowing me to run one load of all of my clothes. Since the laundry room was next to the kitchen, I stayed at the kitchen table eating and talking with Colleen while my clothes washed. Usually choosing to eat later, Caitlin entered, an unusual event for breakfast. Colleen inquired about my daily agenda and I mentioned I was considering traveling into town. I then inquired whether she wanted anything specifically for me to pick up. She mentioned that, should I be so inclined, there were a few items I could acquire for her. I guaranteed her I wouldn't mind at all. Caitlin interrupted at that. "Cool, I'll bike into town with you. It seems like a waste of petrol for both of us to go separately." I had intended to go to the local shop for a few things. Surprised, I turned to say, "Sure, I would be happy to give you a lift." After yesterday, I hadn't expected her to approach me, let alone ask to travel anywhere with me. "I'll be leaving in about an hour and a half, after my laundry is done and put away," I said. She said she would be ready. She sat at the table, silent as Colleen and I carried on our talk after finishing cooking something to eat. Later when I left my cabin, she came out from the rear door looking gorgeous in a turquoise sundress that matched her red hair. She clearly wanted for me to see her. Keeping the passenger side door open for her, I saw her slide inside the car. We started off, and she watched the countryside silently for half of the journey. She said suddenly, "I thought you were going to kiss me yesterday." I looked at her, but she appeared to be staring out the side window and her face eluded me. So I answered, "Well, while that may not have been unpleasant, I do have a rule about not forcing unwanted affections upon unreceptive females." Her head whirled around out of the corner of my vision, and I knew she was staring at me. She sat silently, but I detected sporadic looks in my direction. We turned around and entered the general store. She had a list of things her mother wanted and I had to pick some fresh pairs of pants and blouses. An hour later we got everything loaded. Lunchtime arrived, and I was hungry. I had one more visit at the hardware shop for a few things for Bill. She agreed when I advised we stop for a bite to eat. We drove into the same diner where Bill and Colleen had first met. We ordered our food and set a table across from one another. Sitting in quiet, I started to consider maybe I should have gone directly to the hardware store and then back to the ranch. The door swung open just then, 3 men walking in. 2 of them were the guys who had come knocking on Caitlin. They rushed for our table. The third stood behind me while 2 took seats on either side. They started chatting to her and ignored me. Rising from my seat, I pointed for the third one to settle in as I proceeded to the next table. I motioned the waitress over to have her place our lunch in front of me when she delivered it. I ate fast, without looking at the conversation happening at Caitlin's table. Rising to cover our supper from some bills on the table, her plate was still full and Caitlin had hardly eaten her dinner. I am going to dash to the hardware store. Later on, I can stop back here to see whether you're ready to go, I remarked, stepping in to interrupt their talk. She shoved her plate back, got up and said, "It was nice seeing you guys again, but we have to go." The men seated at the table tried to object. One even volunteered to drive home. She turned away and trailed me to my SUV. She stayed in the car looking to be fuming as we drove to the hardware store. The quiet suspense followed us back to the ranch. She exclaimed, "Why did you do that?" turning off the highway down the mile-long driveway. "What?" I said, not sure what she was pointing out. "Reading to the other table," she said. "Oh, it is interesting. I assumed then that you would rather hang out with your buddies. Besides, I wanted not to be in the thick of their vying for your attention." She snapped, "You really are a hole." I kept my mouth closed wisely. I had no desire to fight her slaps while behind the wheel. She pulled up to the main home and collected what she could carry right away as soon as I opened the SUV's back. I carried extra bags and trailed her inside the house. She threw everything on the kitchen table without saying anything to her mother as I stepped in the rear door, then walked off toward her room. Colleen turned to ask a dubious question. I said, "I guess I'm in a hole," shrugging. She laughed and moved up to lay a hand on my arm. "I have never seen someone affect Caitlin the way you seem to have." I responded, "I guess I was born to just piss her off." She left me wondering when she said, "I'm not so sure about that." I went back to my cabin and tucked up my fresh wardrobe. Choosing to get out from under confinement, I saddled a horse in the barn. I ended up sitting at the top of the waterfall sitting out. The weather was good, so I tied the horse to a tree and sat at the fall's edge staring down the still pool. Caitlin rode up below me, getting off her horse, half an hour or maybe longer seated there. Not wanting to be accused of spying in case she was skinny dipping once more, I grabbed a stone and threw it down to produce a splash in the water. She turned around looking for the noise source and saw me. She expected to be leaving, but instead mounted her horse and galloped up to where I was seated. Was walking toward me from her horse, which was hitched beside mine. Rising, I moved away from the brink in case she intended to shove me off. Stopped inches from me, she said, "You're a hole. And you're still a B*********, I said. I skipped waiting for her slap this time. I held her about the waist and kissed her, releasing her fast. She grabbed my arm and turned me back around even as I tried to approach my horse. When she grabbed behind my neck and drew me in for another kiss, I was astounded. We discovered ourselves in an enthusiastic hug. Our clothing vanished and we had a great time as the enthusiasm developed. Our breathing settled gradually, and we stayed in a quiet embrace. We groomed, mounted our horses, and rode back. She turned and headed to the main house after stealing our mount silently. I went back to my cabin in a haze and slid into the shower. One thing became very clear. I felt far more for this fascinating woman than I had admitted to myself. I hardly had time to get dressed for dinner. Bill, Colleen, Sam were already in the kitchen when they arrived, but Caitlin was nowhere to be seen. She came in as we were seated and chose the chair next to mine instead of her normal spot near Sam. Bill and Colleen looked at one another, and Caitlin just grinned politely. She animatedly spoke during dinner. Though curious, her parents avoided questioning why their daughter was in such great spirits. She helped her mother tidy the kitchen after dinner while Sam and I returned to our cabins. Just as I had snuggled between the sheets, my door knocked softly. Wearing just my boxers, I unlocked the door and Caitlin slid inside, toward my arms. We kissed tenderly, and she led me back to my bed following her clothes shedding. Once more, we made love before nodding out into each other's embrace. The sudden arrival of 5 a.m. made me groggy, reach over and turn off the screaming alarm. I forced myself from bed with tremendous reluctance. I left a soft kiss on her head, then lit the bathroom and got ready for the day before sliding out of the cabin. I couldn't ignore Bill and Colleen's careful looks during breakfast. I asked whether they knew where their daughter disappeared to at night. I loaded the pickup after the dinner so I could install fence posts another day. Working on a ranch by yourself gave lots of time for reflection. My thoughts turned to my recent past, amazed that only 3 months had passed since divorcing my wife. It seemed like a lifetime. I thought about the meaning Bill, Colleen, and Sam had in my life. Then my thoughts turned to the lovely Caitlin and the shared events from yesterday. I thought about the kind of love her parents embodied. I found once more at lunch that I had neglected to pack my lunch. The idea came to me and I heard a pickup racing toward me. Caitlin shot out, sprinting toward me with a bag. She launched herself at me, planted a passionate kiss, then handed me the bag. Ignoring the supper, I drew her in for another passionate kiss. I set my post to her a few times even though I didn't mark as many fence posts that day. We also found time to converse throughout our passionate times. I shared specifics of my past life, including how my ex-wife had betrayed me. I told her, "The only way I will leave is if you tell me to go." She came home at last, and I completed today's tasks. She was in the kitchen when I arrived, having a shower and changing, once more selecting the seat next to mine. A knock at the front door mid-meal was heard. Bill responded and came back carrying the same man who had first called on Caitlin. Caitlin gazed at him, her face unreadable, the minute he was seated. "I was wondering if you might want to go for a drive," he asked. Driving was practically a euphemism for going on a date in this section of the nation where choices were few. "I appreciate the offer, but I don't think my boyfriend would like it," Caitlin said. She slanted over to kiss my cheek. Blushed and flustered, Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome hurried out. That conversation let our friendship be seen clearly. Looking at Bill and Colleen, I saw approving smiles. Bill wore a huge smile. We had formally become a couple. Local males calling on Caitlin stopped paying visits in the next few days. She made it abundantly apparent she was not accessible. I figured out how I might help her with her ideas. She was looking for a loan from the bank to buy the tools her veterinary company needed. The only choice was to have her father list the ranch as collateral. The bank was reluctant to grant an unsecured loan. She was not sure she should ask him. "I recommend a few days. I might have an answer." I opened an account under the pretense of a fictional loan company by calling my offshore bank. On my computer, Caitlin completed a loan application that I had configured to direct to my email. 2 days later, I informed her her loan had been approved and a wire transfer would be delivered to her account. The news delighted her, but she wondered why the loan only carried a 2% annual rate. They were a non-profit charitable group lending money to people they thought would benefit the community, I said. I knew she was too proud to take the money, even if I could have just given her it. Having acquired her degree by diligence, she was resolved to achieve on her own terms. She had bought a new van, turned into a mobile veterinarian office with all the required tools by the time her license was issued. Local ranchers called for her services as word of her license status got out. Many evenings Caitlin stayed in my cabin with me. Bill and Colleen seemed to have no objections even though they knew. She was old enough at 27 to be making her own decisions. Wilson and his team faced trial 3 months later. The case was really simple. The smallest man cooperated with the prosecutors, getting 2 years of probation instead of jail. Each of the 5 other hands Wilson hired received 5 years in prison. Wilson, the brains behind the rustle, was sentenced to 10 years and fined $50,000. I looked into him and his ranch when he was sent to jail. There was no one left to handle the ranch when he found he was single with no family in the vicinity and with all his hands imprisoned. This let me create a fresh strategy. But before I started it, I had to conclude my divorce, some unresolved stuff. It was unacceptable to me to consider Janice having half my money. I sought help once more from my friend Jake to reach this. I requested him to speak with Janice instead of writing an email, so phoning him I wanted him to say that I had gotten in touch and wanted to provide a settlement in exchange for a divorce. The offer was just $50,000. She would never hear from me once she turned down and would not get paid either. Playing innocent at first, she insisted on knowing why I'd left and why I would not be coming back. The act came apart when Jake came clean about her romance with Brandon and her intention to divorce me. Janice accepted my offer when her game was revealed. She is still a waitress and suffers financially. I had to go back to Texas and get a lawyer to draft the divorce paperwork before moving forward. When I told Caitlin of my leaving, she was not happy. I told her I would be back and stated I had to shut that chapter of my life. She insisted on taking me and being there upon my return. Even though at first I intended to leave my car in long-term parking at the airport. Leaving behind my SUV and most of my stuff, except for what would fit in one suitcase, seemed to help her relax. On a Sunday, I left and Jake picked me up at the airport. Making sure to call Caitlin every night, I stayed with his family. Friday saw all the paperwork arranged. Explaining that Janice would get a check for $10,000 right away and that the rest $40,000 would be paid in 60 days following the divorce, Jake brought Janice to my lawyer. She signed the paperwork, and my attorney handed her the $10,000 payment. Never had to deal with Janice. Then I realized I had personal stuff in storage. Yearbooks, souvenirs and antiques from my parents, and other precious objects. Wanting not to go back for them later, I hired a moving van and loaded it. When I told Caitlin I wasn't flying back, she was first surprised, But her enthusiasm about my homecoming rose as I explained I was bringing back everything significant to her. To get the distance covered, I drove nonstop for 3 days. Everyone greeted me enthusiastically as I arrived Tuesday night at the Rockin' Bee Ranch. Caitlin kept extending her friendly welcome till early dawn, when we at last nodded off, completely worn out. My first half of the strategy was finished. Now I was ready to apply the rest. This included many visits to the jail where Wilson was housed. I wanted him to sell me his property. At first hostile, I kept arguing my case. He would be imprisoned for at least 7 years, I noted, and even with good behavior, he would not be eligible for release. Without someone to look after his ranch, his house and structures would probably fall apart, and his animals would probably die over the winter without appropriate care. I also wondered whether he would be welcomed back following his conviction. When the prospect of ruin presented itself, he finally took my offer and had something to start over with when released. Securing funding came next. Knowing Janice wouldn't compromise her $40,000 by acting rashly, I moved my money back into the country. It was really simple to get financing as I negotiated a $5 million price with Wilson that was less than the actual value of the property. I financed the $500,000 down payment I made. Spending a month finishing everything, I kept my activities under wraps except for Caitlin and Bill. I told them I needed to give my assets some personal business-related attention. I established a corporation and registered the land under its name even though I only spent 1 or 2 days a week on it. I hired someone to cut the hay on the land as summer was closing and fall was setting in. In the meanwhile, I also used 4 hands to run the ranch and live on site. Appointed as temporary foreman, the most experienced hand explained that, albeit being close, I would be an absentee owner for a while. I promised him he could always reach me by phone, and I scheduled regular trips to the property. The last component of my strategy was renovating the main house, a 2-story 5-bedroom property requiring modernizing. Even if Caitlin was annoyed with my hiding of my activities, our connection kept flourishing. Every day my love for her deepened and I sensed she felt the same about me. Her veterinary practice grew rapidly and she had to be on the road often, yet she was comfortable and joyful. It got to the point where I almost told her about what I was doing, almost leaking the beans. She cornered me with questions after coming back to check on the remodeling. What the devil is Carson doing? You see someone else? God no, I said, I swear there is no one else. I simply have certain tasks I have to finish. Please believe me, I will shortly tell you everything. Please start to believe me. Okay Carson, I do trust you, but you better tell me what's going on soon, or I'm going to kick your ass, she added, examining my face in quest of the truth. I grabbed her and planted all the love I could on a kiss. The main house renovation was finished as spring started and calving season got underway. It was time to carry out the last element of my scheme. I invited Caitlin to drive one afternoon while she was alone herself. I have been considering it time for me to leave the Rocking Bee Ranch, I told her. Her eyes filled with tears instantly, then she continued, but I promised I wouldn't leave. I had timed it to coincide with our arrival to the former Flying Doll Ranch's gate. I turned in and was going down the private road. I wasn't particularly intending to travel far, I said. She turned to glance about, obviously perplexed. I'm not sure she listened to what I said. She then inquired as to our activities on Wilson's territory. I put off responding until we arrived at the main home. I told her to come on so I could show her something. Out of the truck, I walked around opening her door. I took her hand and walked her to the front door, opening it. What the heck are we doing? She said once again. For this we might run afoul of rules. I advised her to unwind, that Wilson no longer owns the ranch, and that we should look about. I wanted to find out her opinion of the house. We walked through the bedrooms upstairs, then returned downstairs. The living room was spacious, the den was elegantly paneled, 2 rooms set up as home offices, and last but not least the kitchen. Her look told me she was delighted at the new kitchen. The one room with furniture was the one I meant to use for my office. The rest of the house waited for her choices about its furnishings. When I asked her what she thought of the house, she replied it was rather lovely. When I then questioned whether she felt she could live there, she exclaimed, "What the hell is going on?" She was clearly perplexed and growing agitated. I lowered to one knee and reached into my jacket pocket with a hand. I told Wilson I did and that she could live on the ranch as my wife. Wilson no longer owned it. She answered in an unexpected tone, "You own the house?" I nodded furiously, and she said, "Yes." I then pulled the engagement ring from my pocket, held it up and asked her to marry me. Her face wrinkled and tears flooded her eyes. I first assumed I had made a mistake till she tackled me into my back and planted lips over my face. She then held her finger so I could slide the ring on. She then turned about the house with fresh eyes, running from room to room and closely looking at everything. I waited calmly till she returned sprinting back into my arms. She exclaimed fervently, "The house is beautiful, I love it." She followed me across the room to 2 doors opening off a hall. I added, "There are 2 offices, one for you to run your business from and one for me," receiving yet another long kiss. After guiding her into the office with the desk, I brought out a big sheet of paper. Its sketch had a property gate bearing the name Double C Ranch above it. Examining it closely, she wondered what the Double C meant. "It stands for Carson and Caitlin Ranch," I told her. I joined her, stripping her off when she started tugging at my clothes. She was crying. I set her atop the desk, and together we christened the office with our love. We made love in every room of our new house in the next few days. It was time to go tell her parents, once we had recovered and changed clothes. I believe she floated out to the truck, clearly delighted. A few minutes after 6 we returned and Bill, Colleen and Sam were already in the kitchen having dinner. Walking in together, Caitlin waved her left hand and shrieked, "We're getting married!" Bill and Sam came over, pumped my hand and patted me on the back while Colleen got up and ran over to hug her daughter. Then Caitlin hugged her father and Sam, and my future mother-in-law gave me a huge hug. Once things cooled off, we all sat down to eat. Caitlin waited till everyone finished their meals. "Of course, this means we will be moving," she remarked as apathetically as could be. Bill, Colleen, and Sam said simultaneously, "What?" I answered, "Well, Bill, you know how Wilson wanted to combine his ranch with yours?" She pressed me to inform them. I reasoned it might be a benefit. Standing angrily, Bill shouted, "There's no way in hell the flying doll is going to get his ranch." Laughing, I advised him to cool off. "It's no more the flying doll but the Double C Ranch. The new owners are seated at your table right now." Confused, he asked me what I was referring to. "I bought out Wilson. Now, Double C, Carson and Caitlin own the ranch," I said. Colleen realized it immediately. Bill sat down, turned to face Colleen, and she nodded her head. We shook on his hand he held across the table to me. "Damn it, Carson, I accept your offer although this will take some getting used to." I answered, "This implies Sam will be the head foreman since we will have more hands to monitor. And now I get to remove all those fence posts I labored so hard to install on that side of the property." Everyone laughed. That evening was a noisy party. Caitlin wore me out and slept at my cabin overnight. The next morning we arrived late for breakfast, yet everyone was still in the kitchen when we arrived. They were waiting for us to eat so that Caitlin might show off our new house and we could all go over to the Double C Ranch. Everyone was amazed. I watched Colleen glare angrily at the rebuilt kitchen. Caitlin and her mother spent a month furnishing the house. On our wedding night, it was ready to move into. We married on the Double C Ranch. Respected and well-liked, Bill and his family invited ranchers and their families from miles around to mark the occasion. I was invited into Caitlin's life as her husband, Bill's son-in-law, and new Double C Ranch owner. We at last got to bed later